Bill Gates is going to write us a check for $2 million. One day, I'm going to walk to that mailbox thinking it's just bills, and our life is going to change. It did happen. He got the letter and came back in and went, Bill Gates. And we all were like, oh! So now we're getting 14 million from Bill Gates and his family.
Let's start at the beginning.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. My family grew up with the Gates family.
When you say grew up with, like, were they in the same neighborhood?
Not exactly in the same. They were about 15 minutes away. Okay. So every summer they would go to their summer home on the Hood Canal. They would be barbecuing. Bill Gates Sr. would be out on the boat with, my uncles and aunts, and they'd be swimming across the lake. And, they would meet for social gatherings a lot. Mary Gates and my grandmother, Sarah, were best friends. They would do social gatherings, and every year they had this Christmas party. It was this huge Bill Gates family Christmas party that my family would go to. So I had never heard of the Gates family until this story starts. So to give you a little context of who my dad was before we get into this, I always compare him to George Costanza from Seinfeld. Right. He's just chronically unemployed, bald, fat, thinks he's the smartest guy in the room, but none of his schemes ever work out, and a total womanizer. Yeah, my dad was deeply religious, and I know, ironic, right? Yeah. And especially involved with the prosperity gospel, the idea that if you just give the church your money, God will rain down money on you, and you'll just be this wealthy. When you see all the super churches, mega churches, they're all preaching the prosperity gospel, and they're all profiting off of it.
I was going to say, it's funny because some of the biggest, matter of fact, almost every Ponzi schemer that I met in federal prison could quote scripture like nobody you've ever met, and almost all of them were super involved in the church.
Oh yeah, Luke 6:38, man. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and overflowing. Like, that's the idea. So yeah, the televangelist, make $1,000 leap of faith. Send me that $1,000, and the Lord's gonna. Someone out there with credit card debt. Oh, the Lord's gonna take care. My dad was the guy in the living room going, I have credit card debt. Oh my God, the Lord is telling me to send this guy $1,000. And my dad didn't work, so $1,000. I mean, especially for the '90s, that's a lot of money anyway.
So how did he have a family? He didn't work.
All right, so I was born in California. I was born in Santa Barbara, and pretty soon after that, because he had no money, he went up to Washington, where my uncle owned an apartment complex. My uncle is a very successful real estate guy, mostly with commercial properties.
Okay.
So he owned an apartment complex, and he offered my dad, like, look, you can have an apartment for free. You can live there. I just need you to do like one shift a week security. You don't even have to be out driving. Just every couple hours, just peek your head out and take a lap and just make sure everything's good, and you can live in this apartment for free. So that's how we ended up in Washington. We were there for a while, and my uncle showed up to the apartment one day, and my dad was being real weird, and my uncle was like, what's going on? And my dad's like, well, I haven't worked in forever, and we don't have any money, and we don't have any food, and we don't have any diapers. Right. So my uncle's like, you should have told me. So he goes to the store and gets all that and brings it to us. And that's kind of how we were surviving, was church food banks, welfare checks, food stamps, stuff like that. And then every once in a while.
Why didn't he get a job?
I
mean, even a shitty job.
Yeah,
plus a free apartment.
Because he was too good for that. He was too good for the shitty job. So this is
but
like
not too good to accept handouts.
Well, he would hate you for the handout, but he would take that money. So he hated my uncle. My uncle and him grew up together. They have the same education. They both have business degrees. They both worked on the pipeline in Alaska. All the same opportunities, except my uncle can meet someone, integrate, work with them, and make them successful, and everyone wins, because my uncle is this amazing guy. He's very honest, and everyone loves him. My dad would become an assistant to a wealthy guy. Everything's looking good. If he just sticks to this, it leads to success. But within 2 months, oh, this guy's an idiot. Like, he doesn't know what he's doing. Oh, I could do this better. But instead of quitting, he would just be the shittiest employee until you fired him, so he could blame you.
Yeah, I was going to say, I always meet these guys who are like, it's funny, like, I met a guy who was homeless, hired him, gave him a job, gave him a truck, cleaned him up, And 2 months later, he's trying to tell me how to run my
Yeah.
business. Like, you were homeless 2 months ago.
Yeah. I did stucco when I was 18.
Right.
And, we would get guys from the halfway house. And it was always, oh, man, Jesus saved me. Halfway house. I'm the hardest worker in the room. And then in like a month, they just wouldn't show up. They absconded with the work truck that they were given. Or, the truck is found at the airport and they're gone and their parole officer's looking for them. So, yeah, it's a whole thing.
So your dad.
Yeah. So my dad did that. And once you get into circles with successful people and you kind of fuck them all over, they start talking and nobody hires you anymore.
Right.
So I remember in the early 90s, he went to Saudi Arabia to help with the oil spill that happened. And he was gone for almost 2 years. He left right before my sister was born. I would have been 4 at this point.
You'd think that'd be good money, right? Like that.
It was good money.
Fucking money.
Yeah, it was good money. I don't know why he came back after just a couple of years or what he did with this money. But when he came back, my sister didn't even know who he was because he had been gone her whole life.
Right.
And then at one point, he got an accounting job for a construction company in Michigan, and we're living right outside Seattle in Federal Way. So why he got a job in Michigan, I'm a kid, so not a lot of anything makes sense.
Right.
But he was gone for a little while, and my mom had this really interesting way of dropping super inappropriate details about their relationship to us kids. So all of a sudden, he came back, and a couple years later, she let it slip that he had met a girl in his apartment complex, and there might have been some fraternizing there. So she demanded he come back.
Right.
So we're living in Federal Way, and at this time, my entire family, except for my uncle, is living around Seattle. We're very close. My aunts and uncles and cousins, I remember birthdays and holidays and everything. Like, it was great. And I was too young to realize that my dad was, the black sheep of the family, the guy that was just not like everyone else. So eventually he got a job with Raytheon in Chicago. So we moved from Seattle and we lived in Indiana, Hobart, Indiana, about 45 minutes from Chicago. And he had that job for, I want to say, a year to 2 years. I think he was a construction foreman because he had a trailer like on the work site. He had to wear the hard hat. He brought me there a couple of times, like bring your kid to work day.
Right.
So I never really understood what he did, but it was like this big construction site. So in 1996, my grandma dies of cancer. She had lung cancer for a couple of years. We were all expecting it. So we, arrangements were made through her, estate to pay for our family to fly back to Seattle, stay in a hotel for a week. We were going to go to her condo and split up all the possessions and do the memorial and all that. And it was about a month in between her dying and us going there. She was cremated, so we didn't, there wasn't a rush. Yeah, right. Exactly. She had very specific instructions for how she wanted everything to go. So it took a while to put together. So my dad was, I'd like to believe he was sad that his mom died. Right. But what he would talk about was the jewelry collection that she had. Because, my grandparents were very wealthy. Right. I think they were wealthy up until the time they died. So my dad's talking about this insane jewelry collection that has to be worth hundreds of thousands, if not over $1 million.
So your grandfather had already died.
Well, my grandparents had separated.
Okay.
Yeah. So they were still technically married. He's living in a separate townhouse and she has her own. And while this is happening, he has emphysema, so he's also dying.
Okay.
Yeah. The last time I saw him was at that memorial, and he's dragging the air canister behind him, and he's got the little line in his nose. So
I don't know how it is in Seattle and Washington, but in Florida, if your spouse dies, the spouse gets everything.
Yeah.
So
and he did get everything. Okay. Yeah, he did.
But your father's thinking, there's going to be some. I'm going to go and pilfer the jewelry.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we're going to get the jewelry. We're going to get the cash that she's got in the safe. Like he's like immediate payday. And even though he was working, he had no impulse over his spending. So we had no money. We were always behind in rent. Fortunately or unfortunately for him, our landlord was a quadriplegic, and he had no family help. He had a really hard time getting out of his house. So my dad took advantage of that. He can't come over here. He's kind of a slumlord. I know this about him, so he's never going to kick us out of this house. That's the thing that my dad did, is when he got involved with someone, he would dig into them. He would look into their tax records and all that stuff. How can I manipulate this person? Which is just nuts.
Yeah.
So we get out there, and it's maybe the first or second day that we're there, and my dad asks my uncle, where's the jewelry? Like, she also had a large collection of pure silver, utensils, cutlery, baking dishes, like that was supposed to be worth a ton of money. Yeah. Right. And my dad's like, where is it all? And my uncle's like, where is what? He goes, the jewelry, the cash, the silver, where is it? And my uncle goes, there isn't any. What are you talking about? He goes, Mom never kept cash. Like, when do you remember her ever keeping cash? The jewelry was not real jewelry. Like it was one of those things, like they rolled with expensive crowds and they had money, but they were frugal. Right. So those diamonds weren't real diamonds, and that silver wasn't real silver.
Right.
So there was nothing. My dad had just, I think that degree of that was how much he told my mom how much money we were going to get. So now in front of her, he's being told that we're getting nothing.
Or maybe even he believed it by that. But if you're thinking this, or if you're saying this for 10 or 20 years, people don't realize is that people that tell a lie for 20 years straight,
they believe it.
They at a certain point, they've created the memory of that lie, and they'll pass a lie detector test. They've completely convinced themselves.
It's really interesting. When you get into repressed memories too, that's like a whole other thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because how many times have you had a child, and this has happened to me, especially since I got out of prison and went back and saw my old buddies. Yeah. They're telling me about things that happened. One, either I can't remember, or I'm like, no, we were at the party when that happened. They're like, nah, bro, we were at the gas station. Remember this and this? And I'm like, and as they're telling me, even though I have a vivid memory of being at a party when this happened, I'm like, oh, you're right. Yeah. And John's brother was there, right? Yeah. What are you talking? I'm like, was Jennifer there? And they're like, no, bro, we didn't even meet her for another year. I'm like, I could have swore she was there at the party with us when this happened. Like, just complete. And I would have listened. I would have swore that's what happened.
Oh, yeah. One of my good friends, Danny, has a tattoo I did on him 13, 14 years ago. And I still don't believe that I did it. I have no memory. Hey, he showed it to me. Have you ever had that, John?
I always remember the tattoo.
Yeah.
Never the person, always the tattoo.
Oh, yeah. He's like my good friend. And he was like, dude, remember when I got in that car accident right outside where you were tattooing? I just came in and you gave me this thing as a consolation. I'm like, no, like, I don't remember that at all. But I look at him like, hey, if you say so, I believe you.
I was going to say, people will say, yeah, remember you said this? And I'm like, I don't remember saying it, but sounds like
me.
Like
yeah. Mm-hmm. And the quality of it was about where I was at that time. So, yeah, it was all blown out and shitty. But yeah, so
silver,
my dad,
silver's gone, no money, the jewelry's not real. What are you doing here?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm surprised he didn't just pack it up and fly us back to Indiana the next day. So, but he just goes into a rage, and this is my dad can talk himself into anything. Right. So I think that this was a big projection of the resentment he felt towards my uncle for helping us out, because that apartment story is only one way. My uncle got my dad out of some sketchy tax shit.
Right.
Yeah. My dad always wanted to be with wealthy, well-to-do people, but he resented them because he wasn't one of them. Right. But he wasn't one of them because his pride was too big for him to pass entry-level positions. If he could just shut his mouth for 2 years, he could be put on a fast track for success. He just couldn't do it. So I remember in the car on the way to our hotel that night, he is just raging. They have stolen everything. There was absolutely cash in that house. Right. There was absolutely jewelry in that home. And my aunts had actually gone through and, the jewelry belongs to them. It's their mother's. Like, basically the sale of the townhouse and the sale of whatever was left over after the kids picked through everything was going to go to my grandpa. But until then, like, the family could claim anything that was in the house if they wanted it. So my aunts had actually gone through and divvied up the jewelry between them, and then they were like, oh, you know what? Let's save a few things for, I'm not going to say my mom's name, but for her. Right. It would be nice because, she loved our mom also. So they gave her, I don't know exactly what it was. It was a small collection of jewelry. And my dad was so fierce. He was like, they gave us the worst of the whole collection. Like, he didn't see the collection. It was already divvied up by the time he got there, but he's assuming that we've gotten the worst. They gave us the worthless stuff while they got the diamonds and they got the gold, and they're going to be laughing all the way to the bank and,
Well, if that was true, you should have been on your fucking P's and Q's. And the moment she was sick, you should have been there when she fucking died.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know? I mean, waiting a month later.
Yeah, I know that my dad did go and see her once before she died, and he described her to me, and it sounded horrific. Right. And I got to say goodbye to her on the phone, and she was completely delirious, out of her mind. I don't even think she knew that she was talking to me or who I was at that point. Yeah, but you'd think, you know, maybe don't treat your family like shit. Like when we moved to Washington, we didn't say goodbye to them. Like my dad didn't even tell them. My uncle just came to town one day and was like, hey, let's hit up, you know, Mike and let's get the family together because I'm in town. And they're like, oh, he moved. And my uncle was like, what? So my dad's name is Mike.
Right.
So yeah, so we're there and he's just melting down. And he's the type of guy, I think he's got like an anxious attachment where when something's bothering him, he can't not talk about it. Right. So every time we're in the car, he's talking about it. Every time we're at the hotel, he's talking about it. The only time he's not talking about it is when we're with the family. He doesn't want them to know what he's thinking. So we start divvying up, you know, the possessions, you know, with the stickers. You can go put your color sticker on the thing that you want. If two people want it, you flip for it or whatever. So after being there for a couple of days, my dad was alone in this room and he's looking for jewelry. He's looking for cash. He's looking for what he can steal to get his because he just got screwed by everybody.
Right.
And he finds this box and he opens the box and in it is years of personal correspondence between Mary Gates and my grandmother that had family details concerning the Gates, stuff that was happening. There was handmade Christmas cards for the Christmas party that they would throw every year. She would hand make the cards and send them out, and he had just years and years of those. Pictures of our family with the Gates at the summer vacation home. I mean, just a ton of stuff. And
you said the one photograph of Bill Gates on the cover of.
Yeah. So there was one card in particular. They had taken a blank Time magazine template and had stuck a black and white photo of Bill Gates when he was about 13 onto it.
Right.
So my dad sees that, and Bill Gates had just recently been on the cover of Time magazine for real. So he's thinking, cha-ching. This is worth a ton of money. Not only is it Bill Gates memorabilia, but this is foreshadowing of Bill Gates being on Time magazine. So he's just seeing dollar signs. And he's also seeing, I ain't sharing this with them because they already screwed me. So he takes a little manila envelope. He grabs like 5 or 6 of these cards. He stuffs in the envelope, puts it in his jacket. And we get back to like super espionage. So we get back to the hotel, and in front of us kids, he pulls the manila envelope out and says to my mom, look what I found. And he's like pulling them out, and she's looking at everything, and she's like, okay, and? And he says, this is Gates family personal memorabilia, personal letters with family details that they don't want other people to have to my mother. This is worth millions of dollars. This whole collection could get us millions. That was the thing. My dad, he saw things in millions.
Right.
You know, like we were the family that when the whole block would have garage sales, like we would have a weekend where every family had a garage sale. You know, everyone else is selling books for 10 cents. My dad is selling like old prints that he got from my grandma's in a nice frame for $700, and no one's buying.
Yeah, right. Yeah, just delusional.
Yeah, and he's sitting there like mad that nobody's buying. Like, doesn't anyone see the treasures that I have? It's like people don't go to garage sales to spend $700.
They're trying to spend. Yeah, I was gonna say my mom would go and it's $3, and she's still trying to get it for $1.
Oh yeah. Oh, you want 50 cents for that? Would you take 25?
Yeah, I got a quarter.
That's right. That's how I got my first National Geographic magazine collection.
But the family, cards, like it's funny because when we talked about this on the phone, like I can kind of in a way it's like, okay, I just don't see that they're worth anything, but in another way I think to a collector they're probably worth something. Maybe I don't know how many there were, but it could be maybe it's $1,000, maybe it's $10,000.
Yeah,
who knows?
And that is the
millions.
thing. Yeah, I could see a super tech savvy memorabilia collector paying $1,000 for that card.
How cool would it be to have that template that, the Time magazine, or was it Time?
Yeah,
The Time magazine with the thing, and then the real one that or when he
framed
actually got on
it.
Framed next to it. Like,
Totally.
That's pretty cool. I could see that being $1,000.
The thing is if my dad had actually made that, like he completely missed it. He could have actually created something out of these cards and actually had gotten money.
Right. But that's
think
too much. He wants to make a few phone calls and get.
Yeah, my dad was the type, he was looking for like the big break. Like do you remember when Batman and Robin came out and Taco Bell had the big Batman and Robin thing with the game pieces that you would pull off the sodas, you could win the Batmobile.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, we went to Taco Bell a lot.
Oh, my God.
and I remember, like, as a kid, I'm like, we're going to get the Batmobile. And I remember my dad saying, if anyone's getting the Batmobile, it's me. And like, not even thinking like, so we could sell it.
Yeah.
I'm thinking like, wow, I didn't even know Dad liked Batman.
Yeah. My dad's going to be
Yeah, you don't ever watch.
Batman?
You want the Batmobile, you don't even watch it with us.
Right.
Like, one thing that he also did that was really funny was probably when I was about 13 or 14. We had been doing the Taco Bell thing and the Monopoly, the McDonald's Monopoly. Right. So he's spending tons of money to like get these winning game pieces. And then one day he says to my mom, he says, I've been going about this all wrong. There's a way to get winning game pieces without spending any money. I'm just going to go dumpster dive all the McDonald's tonight.
Wow.
So every time the McDonald's game was being played at McDonald's, he would go dumpster dive in the middle of the night with like a flashlight because he was convinced some idiot had thrown away Park Place and he was going to find it.
But a job was too
But a job was too
that
much.
was out. That's out of the question.
Yeah, job was way too much, but we will dumpster dive McDonald's.
So, here's the thing. I wanted to mention this is because it reminded me. So I had a girlfriend who had a buddy named, his name was Greg. And I remember Greg he collected a couple things. One of the things he collected was, and it was actually the loser of presidential elections. He had a whole huge collection of the pins. Used to be a big thing with the pins.
Yeah.
And it would be like the loser of the, he had Dukakis. He had all the losers of that ran, and he had tons of them. And he's buying them for, these are going for $50 and $100, $200 each pin. And these are the losers.
Right.
So the other thing he had was, so Abraham Lincoln was a lawyer prior to becoming president.
Yeah.
And he actually had like a motion or a certificate, something from the court where Abraham Lincoln had written out, and it was only a few paragraphs, some kind of an agreement of some kind, and he had the original agreement that Abraham Lincoln had signed. So,
wow,
what was it worth? I don't know, but he certainly, and even when I saw it, I thought pretty fucking cool.
Yeah,
I was only like 20,
right, right.
So I can see, but that to me, that's an individual thing,
very individual
that you're going to have to frame. Maybe make a little authentication certificate, something.
A COA. Yep.
Yeah, something.
Yeah, it's stuff like that. Unless you just find the right guy, it's worth more cool points than it is dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, they come up with a plan. And so the card with the Time magazine in particular, my dad was convinced was worth $1 million on its own.
Fucking people are delusional.
It's crazy, right? Yeah. So they come up with a plan. How do we? Well, my mom points out, hey, if you sell this collection and you're going to get millions for it, it's obviously going to get back to the family. They're going to know that you stole this.
Why does your mom even believe this?
I
mean, what's she thinking?
My mom was in. She was on board. Like, she was following this guy and his plan. The thing is despite my personal feelings about my mother and her character, my dad was extremely charming. Okay. And very charismatic.
That'll get you a long way.
It will get you a long way. The unfortunate thing was he was as prideful as he was charismatic, and he could only keep up the act for so long before the pride would start, and then like truth would reveal itself.
Yeah. Keep it up forever.
Yeah. I mean,
pride. I'll throw pride to the side. I'll humiliate myself to maintain that charisma.
Yeah, and that's kind of what he did here a little bit. But the difference being the family can't leave. Anybody can fire the guy. Right. You know what I mean? Like, we were forced to endure this. So they come up with a plan. Let's sneak the collection back in to that box at the townhouse. Okay. And then in the next couple days, when enough people are in that room, you find it again. Right. And, do you guys remember? Oh my God, look at these pictures. And this is exactly how it went down. oh my God, look at these letters, these pictures. Oh, there you are. Oh, there's Bill. Like going over it. And, they're all like, oh yeah, those were sweet memories. And my dad goes, this stuff's not worth anything, but you guys know I like collecting stuff. I like collecting memorabilia. Would you care if I took this? And they were like, no, you can totally have it.
Gotcha, bitch.
Gotcha. Yeah. It's legit now. So, yeah, I remember that night, just them coming up with my dad just being, this is what we're going to do with the money. Like, can you imagine this money? How much, like, are all these things worth? He's reading all the stuff. And
fucking dreamer.
Oh, complete dreamer. And just a narcissist, So the idea becomes, we're going to write a letter to Bill Gates himself, making him aware.
Bill Gates Sr.
Bill Gates Jr. was who. Actually, no, you're right. Bill Gates Sr. did get the letter. Bill Gates was actually not directly involved in this at all. He was aware that it was going on, and he had a couple conversations with my uncle. But at that point, he's dealing with Microsoft and all that.
Yeah,
so the dad is taking care of everything.
I was going to say, I wonder if anybody, if when we're talking about this, people realize like that the Gates family was a wealthy family.
Yeah.
Prior to Bill Gates, there's Bill Gates Sr. They did very well.
Yep.
And Bill Gates then, as a kid was programming, went to college, dropped out of college to start Microsoft.
Did he drop out? I should know this.
I know he was writing I know there were a bunch of blogs and blogs and articles that he had written while in college. I don't know if he actually graduated, but
I think that they learned, because you had to program it manually back then on these like pieces of tape. And I think that he learned programming in school. So he did go to school. I don't know
graduated
if he graduated. Maybe. Yeah.
Somebody will tell us in the comments section.
Yeah.
So
let us know.
So he ends up getting out.
Let us know, Bill.
He ends up starting Microsoft.
Yeah.
And he starts writing Microsoft, and as what do they call Microsoft? It's the operating system?
Yeah, the OS.
Windows. Yeah, Windows. So he does that, and of course it becomes super successful, and
then Steve Jobs comes in with Apple, and they
go to war. Did you ever see the movie Pirates of Silicon Valley? What a great movie! You seen that?
I was literally.
It's a great movie.
I was literally in the shower this morning, and I was like, I'm gonna have to bring up that movie.
It's a great movie.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's a great movie for being a kind of a TV movie.
Sure, it's a very dramatized and a little bit massaged story.
Yeah, but it's
they don't paint a good picture of either of them.
Oh no, they're both scumbags.
Yeah. Oh, my dad loved that movie because it validated his feelings towards the Gates after this went down.
Well, it's the same thing with if you hear some of the stuff that Bill Gates did, just running Microsoft, the kind of bullshit that he pulled, it's like, okay, that's illegal. You can't do. And they would get shut down, but he'd do it for 10 years, and then they give him a fine, and they'd shut him down, and. So,
but I mean, it's that way everywhere.
Yeah. But it's the same thing with what was the other one that came out about Facebook, a Social Network?
Great movie. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Same great thing. Movie. You watch that, and it's massaged a little bit. You have to massage them a little bit because otherwise you can't start it. You can't do a correct timeline, because otherwise by the time the first 10 minutes something happens, 2.5 hours later when they talk about it again, when it came to fruition, nobody remembers. It's like, what have they talked about? Remember the first 10 minutes of the movie? So they have to kind of consolidate things and
10 conversations from 10 people turn into one from one person.
Exactly. We can't have 120 characters. Right. We can have 12.
Right.
And that's excessive.
Yeah. And I mean, when you're casting, Timberlake and Garfield,
you
don't want to bring in more people and dilute the talent pool.
Right.
Or the look department.
Right. Oh, well, listen, what I'm understanding too now is that like for some reason, like some of the stars will ask for more screen time. Like, you're going to pay me my $8 million plus my percentage. But you know what? I noticed that I only have about 20 minutes of screen time. I need 30 minutes of screen time to do this. Look, okay, so Jennifer so-and-so just got cut.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like her whole character just died.
We're going to give all her lines to you.
To you.
Yeah.
Now she's a man, and
Right, yeah.
People are anyway.
It's like War Dogs.
Oh yeah,
got switched. Yeah. When I told some people I was coming on here, I was like, "Well, he wrote, the book that inspired the movie War Dogs," and didn't they kind of rip it off a little bit?
Yeah.
You wrote Evram Deverol's story.
Listen, I have a book that I wrote about.
I was hoping that you had,
and I'll give you the book.
Awesome.
You'll when you read it, you'll be like, oh,
that one, Boziak's and Dad.
I got Boziak's. I have
deep into those stories. Awesome. Yeah.
All right.
So so basically, we're going to try to just do it easy and sell it directly back to the gates.
Right.
We're going to write a letter that heavily implies
How
these.
scummy is that?
Oh, it's horrible. Like the fact that his mother has just died, my grandmother.
You wrote personal cards to a dear friend.
Yeah.
And I'm going to sell them back to you. Instead of just saying, hey, do you want these? You know what I'm saying? And giving them to them.
I mean, yeah, as a money-making scheme, it doesn't make sense. It didn't make sense to anybody but my dad. From an ethical standpoint, this is horrible. This is terrible. And he was using that angle because the letter that he wrote basically said, without saying, these letters in this collection have very sensitive personal information about the Gates family written to my grandmother.
Right.
You wouldn't want other collectors to have that information, right? So just send us $1 million bucks. Yeah. It wasn't worded like that, but he did catalog. He cataloged the collection. So as he's describing which each letter is saying, he's painting a picture of, I don't think you guys want this much personal information out there.
Right.
So give me so it's low-key blackmail is what it is.
Right.
Disguised as, want to buy this memorabilia collection? They're not interested. They actually said, oh, we're very sorry to hear about Sarah. We had a lot of great times with her. We really loved her, and our hearts are with you and your family. They start off like the most amazing way. They're like, as far as the collection, we still have a lot of those cards that we made, and that kind of stuff we don't really keep around. So we're not really interested in buying it. So my dad's like, great. So to him, well, I've offered them, so now I have carte blanche to sell it to whoever I want, which technically he owns it, so he does, but it's shitty to this family that was really generous to him when he was younger.
Right.
So he starts contacting appraisers, and he's sending off these letters of what the collection is and all this stuff, and he's getting letters back from appraisers going, no one wants to touch it. We don't know how to even begin appraising this. There's no comparable collection of anything. It's the Gates. At the time, the Gates is the most rich man in the world. There's no memorabilia collections out there being sold from the Gates family, so no one really knew how to assign a value to it.
What year was this?
96.
It's 96. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So is eBay around in 96? No.
No, I don't even think the internet was in every home in 96.
Yeah, in 96, I think it was just coming out of colleges. Before I would go to anybody,
I'd
look on eBay. Well, I'd look.
Just to see if there's anything.
Okay.
It's funny, I did look. There's nothing like this on eBay.
So to me, what you do is you take one of the more mundane cards, you put it up on eBay. First, you start a website.
Right.
You put one of the, talking about, collecting, memorabilia, whatever. You put one of, and categorizing several, not all of them. Then you take a couple of the more mundane cards and you put them on eBay for $1,200, $600,
see what they sell for. Yeah.
Not only buy them yourself.
You create the paper
market.
trail of purchase.
Right.
Oh, that's so smart.
With a few different people.
Isn't that what celebrities were doing with the digital art NFTs?
Oh yeah. Totally scumbag. And it's farming. You're creating a market by cultivating a market that's not really there.
Yeah.
But if you did that with over the course of 6 months to a year, that there's a few different collectors that have these pieces.
Sure.
That
you could inflate it up.
And they're selling. And then you have a website that has some and another website from another somebody who has some. Within a year, every single one of these is worth $1,800, $1,200, whatever.
Oh yeah.
Then you could go to somebody and try it. You could go to a small bidding place and bid, and I'd show up again to bid. Because keep in mind, if I'm paying $1,200, I'm getting $1,200 back.
Right, it's going right into your pocket.
What's eBay getting? 60, 30 of it?
Yeah. I mean, with you could even make fake buyers. So you're just selling them really to yourself.
They would all be fake buyers.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying the buyers would all be fake.
Right. They'd all be you.
Yeah. Listen, but by the time the appraisers went and looked, that you tried to get them appraised, and they went and said, well, let me check, see if these are selling for it. Damn, there's a market here.
Oh, yeah.
How
but
many
even
do you
then,
have?
We're talking a couple of thousand at the most, not a million.
It doesn't matter. He's not making any money. If I've got 80 of these things or 30 of them.
Right. Well, no, but what I'm saying is we're talking about a couple thousand a card, not a million.
Right. Right. Yeah, he's delusional. Well, but he's just delusional.
Oh, my dad would have never gone for a couple of thousand a card because he had his mindset. Like he could
rather have nothing?
Oh, yeah. He would literally keep his pride and lose it because then he could say, they didn't know what I had, but I knew what I had.
Listen, I'm getting a new Mercedes out of it.
I mean, legit.
Right?
Like, yeah. Or maybe buy your
Something.
family a home, like, something.
Well, yeah.
Not your family, my family.
No,
Like, 'cause we didn't have a nice home. I wasn't directing that at
right.
you. All right. So yeah, all the appraisers turn him down.
Right.
So he creates his own appraisal.
Nice.
The collection's worth $2 million.
I don't know. You're selling me on your dad. I'm sorry.
I
know how this is supposed to go.
I actually thought about it on the drive over, and I was like, if after all this, Matt pulls me into a side room and says, "I actually know your dad," I put it together when you were talking, and here's his information. I won't be shocked.
I text him every couple of days.
Well, the thing is, and this is coming up. He was a mortgage broker also, and
of course, I knew that. Of course, he was.
Yeah,
I knew that.
Yeah. You guys
That's a
probably did
given.
some deals together. He probably, Gary Sullivan might have sold him a property or two, or Mr.
Michael.
Black.
Yeah.
Michael. Or whatever he's calling himself now. But my dad, had he actually thought about how to use mortgage broking to scam the way he thought about this, he would have done what you did 100 times over. Like he never would have stopped.
Like I said, bro, you're selling me on this guy.
Yeah. Hey, if I had his contact information, I would pass it along, but I do not. So he makes his own appraisal. $2 million is what he wants for this collection. $1 million for the Time magazine card, and $1 million for the rest. And he starts, shipping it out to every major publication: Time magazine, Washington Post, computer technology magazines, and then some private memorabilia collectors. So this whole process, we come home from the funeral, and everything we just talked about was probably about a year or so, hearing back from the appraisers, hearing back from the gates, and then you have life that's happening. So this all sounds, as I'm talking about it, like it happens really fast, but It was stretched out over about a year and a half. So he starts blasting out, and he's getting refusals from everybody. Nobody is interested in this collection whatsoever. But a couple of the publications, because of their close relationship with the Gates family, they reach out to Bill Gates Sr. So they contact Bill Gates Sr. and they let him know, this guy Mike is contacting us. He claims to have personal handwritten letters from your late wife,
right?
Because she's passed away at this point, and cards and personal family information. Like,
trying to sell it.
Yeah. Do you know this person? We're giving you the heads up. And he was like, "Oh, I know him. Do not buy from this person." And they're saying, "Well, we've heard from him a lot. He's really aggressive about selling this. So just whatever you want to do with that information, let us know." So my uncle at the time, my extended family has no idea this is happening. We know this is happening, but what our dad is selling it to us as is, I've tithed and give to the church ever since I was in my 20s. There are these scriptures that lay out that we have great wealth that we are destined for because I'm following this prosperity gospel. And then he actually found a televangelist that put a number on it that said, when you tithe that 10%, that's just gone. You just owe that to God. But when you give on top of that, whatever that number is, times that number by 10. And that's the amount you're getting back. And my dad was an Excel spreadsheet guru. Like, I don't remember him never not having an Excel spreadsheet taped to the wall by his computer. And he's got exact dates of all the times he gave to which televangelists, which churches, and he's got that number times by 10, and he's got it.
In case God needs documentation.
In case God needs, a bill or a memo to tell Gates how much to send.
That's how God does it. He's like,
Invoices.
I want to give to you, Mike, but do you have a spreadsheet? Well, I do have a spreadsheet.
So he's like, yeah, and it's because of my faithfulness that we are getting this windfall of cash from the Gates. Like, the fact that our family stole all that jewelry and the cash and everything, that was destined to be. I see it now. We were never supposed to have any of that because that's tainted family money. This is clean money that we're getting directly from God. And I'm 11 at the time.
I hear him.
Yeah. No. If I could just go back to believing it. Right. Because I'm 11 and I believe everything my dad's saying, and we're raised in a very strict church. We're Pentecostal. So things have been strict my whole life. God runs the show, despite the fact that the show's been falling off the track since I was born. The perception I've been given is everything's in control. We're just going through the hard season of faithfulness before we get to the glorious season of reaping.
Right. I hear you.
Yeah.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And again, my dad is charming and charismatic, and he's got scripture to back him up. So my uncle is at a hotel that he owned in Georgia, and he's having this really expensive dinner with his wife, and the maitre d' comes to him and says, hey, you have an emergency phone call in your room that you need to take from your sister. Now, my grandpa is dying of emphysema, so he's like, oh, man, like, you know, because there were a few close calls where he had to be resuscitated. So he's like, oh, man, it happened. Okay, I'll go up to the room. He goes up to the room. He gets on the phone with my aunt, and she goes, I need to talk to you about Mike. And he goes, okay, what about Mike? She goes, well, I just got a phone call from Bill Gates Sr. personally. Now, you know, they hadn't spoken in probably a couple of decades at this point. So, like, when Bill Gates calls, it's like, oh, hi, you know, what's going on? And she says, yeah, apparently Mike has taken that collection of memorabilia that he convinced all of us was worthless, and he's trying to sell it for $1 million. Or he tried to sell it for $1 million to the Gates family. They turned it down, and now he is trying to sell it really to anyone that will buy it. And Bill Gates Sr. was just made aware. And my uncle is like, what? One, because it makes no sense.
Right.
And two, like, so he lied to us about... Like,
it's shocking.
Well, it's shocking,
right.
But this family is very close. I mean, to this day, me and my uncle talked on the phone the other night for 6 hours.
Jesus.
Like, I've never talked to someone that long.
Never talked to a family member that long in my life.
No, I don't think that I
Not
spoke to my
purpose.
dad that much, maybe even collectively. So, and yeah, I had a joint call with him and my aunt a week ago that was 4 hours. Like, we're a very close, tight-knit family. So this was extremely hurtful and damaging, really,
right.
that he would do this. So they're, what are we going to do? Well, we got to confront him. We got to convince him to stop. And it wasn't stop so you can't make this money. It was the Gates are going to come after you. Are you an idiot? Like, Bill Gates Sr. and his high power attorney will ruin. You don't have the money to defend yourself, even if you had a defense,
right?
Which you don't. Yeah. So basically, they decide to get a group call going with my dad. And it's my two aunts, my uncle, and my grandpa, who's dying of emphysema, and he has COPD at the time, so he can barely even speak. So they call my dad on a group call, and they confront him. And they're like, what are you doing? You are not thinking about what you are doing. This is the Gates family. This is the most powerful and influential family in the world at that time. They can absolutely ruin. They will take this public. They will publicly smear you, and then you will have no reputation to work. What are you going to do for your family?
Yeah, but even put that aside.
Yeah.
This is a family that was personal friends of your family,
yes,
and was such good friends of your mother.
Yeah.
They wrote a personal handmade card.
Many.
Over and over, like throughout your entire life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you know, drop it.
Yeah. Yeah. Drop it.
Yeah.
And he dug his heels in, and he just said, this is my property, and you don't have the right to tell me what to do with my property. So my grandpa, who, again, has COPD,
right,
he speaks for probably the first time in weeks.
I'm cutting you out of the will.
No. He's like, Michael, I'm begging you. Like, he's literally dying.
Right.
And he's begging my dad, stop what you are doing. The exact words was, do not f with the Gates. You don't know what you're doing. And so my dad said, you know, this belongs to me, and I'm not going to listen to any of you. And he hung up on all of them. So over the course of the year and a half since the collection was stolen, like I said, he just constantly talks about how our family had screwed him, how they had stolen the cash and the silver and the jewelry and blah, 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 blah. Like, he never got over it. And now...
Well, technically it wasn't stolen. He showed it to your family.
Well, no, he's going on about how they stole from him.
Oh, that they had stole all the cash, jewelry, and silver.
Because that's the thing is what
that's
my dad is doing.
justification.
What my dad is doing is up,
Yeah.
and it's a scam. I mean, it's not real. And you could even say he got it through fraudulent means because he lied about what his intentions were. He knowingly lied. It was a plan that they made up the day before. So, but all of that is okay because it's justified by the fact that this imaginary silver and jewelry and cash that we never even saw was supposedly stolen from us.
Right.
So he's talking about that. So now he's starting to get more personal about the family. Oh, and your aunt and her uncle are fat and disgusting. If you ever watch them eat, like he was going off about them. And then my uncle had been divorced a couple of times, and the womanizer that can't keep a wife. My dad had also been divorced at that time.
Right.
He's just tearing them down. And then they sit us down one day and they tell us, we are no longer going to speak to your uncles or to your uncle, your aunts, or your grandpa who's on the verge of dying. And we're like, why? And they were like, well, because the Lord ordained that this wealth is coming to us. And they have stepped in and have asked us to not sell this collection. They're putting the pressure on us to stop because they're not going to get any of the money.
It's the devil's work.
It's the devil's work. They're listening to the devil. They're trying to take what the Lord has already given us. That was the thing. The Lord already gave it to us.
Right.
Well, I heard like 100 times. Well, then where the is it?
Right.
Like, where is it? So he's saying, so from now on, this is the rule. When anyone from the family calls, you immediately say, my parents are not home and I'm actually about to step out, but I'll let them know you called. And then you hang up the phone and you walk to the front door and you open it and you step out. And then you come back in because you didn't lie.
Just stupid, but okay.
I mean, this is like
still manipulation, still misleading, but okay, whatever. Yeah.
And we did it.
Right.
like that was the thing was, it's bad enough if he does that, but you're telling your innocent children who are hurt by the fact that they don't understand why their uncles and aunts and cousins are suddenly not in their lives anymore.
Right.
And they're watching this man fall apart.
Right.
Yeah. And our mom is going along with it, like pretty hard. So the job at Raytheon eventually ended, and that was the most stable job I ever saw him have, and it was maybe a year and a half, 2 years, maybe 2 years maybe. And he just didn't even try to get another job because we had millions of Bill Gates money that was going to...
Sitting in the shoebox.
Yeah, it was sitting in the shoebox just waiting to be paid out. The Lord already gave it to us. We just have to receive it. So at this time, so now that he's not working, he's blasting out the offers. Every time an offer comes back denied, he lowers the prices a little bit and he sends it off again. He's harassing these people. And then we are part of this church. It's called the Nice Church. So we were living in Indiana. Indiana's a big church state. Like if Kentucky's the Bible Belt, then Indiana's like the dress shirt that gets like tucked into it, So we're going to this like very, very Pentecostal church called the Nice Church, the Northwest Indiana Church of Evangelism. And my dad starts getting really involved with the church. Like, look how perfect my family looks. Look how happy my children are. Look at my wife. She smiles and dotes on my every word. Oh, also, I play guitar. I'm going to join your church band. My kids are going to join the Royal Rangers, which is like the church equivalent of the Boy Scouts. We're going to just like integrate into this church and become like a part of it. So that's what he does. And the pastor loved him. And my dad gets off on that. He gets off on being around people of importance and convincing them that he is one of them. But he hates them at the same time. He hates everything that they stand for, but he wants the status, and he gets off on convincing you that he's one of you, even though he's clearly not. So that's going on. And he's unemployed for months, and so he gets his broker's license, and he works with this employment agency that gets him a job at a local, what do you call it, a firm? Or
what, a brokerage business for mortgages?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
All right. So having never done mortgages before in his life, he went from new hire to employee of the month in like record time, like weeks almost. Like he would get leads and they would be closed like super quick. Like
if you have no morals or ethics, you can go very far in the
I never even thought about that. Yeah. He was probably
huge.
He was probably whiting out some stuff.
Yeah,
changing
just
some W-2s,
blatantly lying to people about what they're signing. And
yeah. So I remember him bringing me there one time. It was, I don't know, maybe I was staying home sick, so he had to bring me to work or whatever it was. But they had a list on the wall of their top employees, and my dad is number one. And so my dad comes home one day and he says, oh, they're having a contest at work. Whoever closes the most loans this quarter gets a 3-day paid cruise. It's just going to be, your mom and me, but how great is that? Like, I'm already the best. I'm going to get that cruise. So he worked and he won. Unfortunately, and I don't know all the details, but the cruise did not happen. What happened was he was called into his boss's office and they were like, look, something got screwed up along the way. The cruise is not available. So what we're going to do is we are going to pay for your entire family to spend 3 days wherever you want. We will pay for the hotel. We will pay the travel. We will pay the food. We just can't give you the cruise. That was not okay to my dad. He came home just furious that these guys lied to me. They baited me to get my professional know-how. They made all this money off of me and they screwed me. And my mom's like, yeah, but they're making it up. He goes, doesn't matter. That's not the promise that they gave me. So this offer was under false pretenses. This is fraud.
Right. Same way he got the cards. Same way he,
100%. Yeah. It's not okay when other people do it. So a few days later, he's fired.
Right.
And I found out it was because he printed out the information for the cruise, like the whole flyer that they had passed around the office or whatever. And he wrote on it, basically calling the boss out, I want my cruise or everyone's going to know what a liar you are. And he taped it in the break room for everyone to see, and they fired him within a couple of days of that. And that's his fault. That's the boss's fault. Oh, I got fired because he didn't like being told what he was doing wrong. He didn't like keeping his promises to me. Okay, so he goes back to the employment agency and they find him a place at another broker place. Same cycle starts again. He's immediately successful. He's well liked by everyone. He's doing great. And then suddenly he's fired. And he's fired because he got maybe a couple months into this job. He's like, oh, my boss is an idiot. They're so slow with how they do things. I could do this better on my own.
Everybody's an idiot, but they're signing your check.
100%. Right. Yeah. You're calling them boss.
Right.
So did something right. So he stole a bunch of leads from the office and brought them home and tried to close them himself from home outside the company and immediately gets caught. So they fire him. So he goes back to the employment agency and they say, yeah, we're not working with you anymore. Like
you're a problem.
Yeah, you're a problem and we're just not sticking our necks out there for you anymore. So my dad's like, oh, fine. So he starts his own mortgage broking company at our house called LaSalle Funding and doesn't work at all. He sits at his computer and just clicks the mouse. And the best way that I can describe him, because it's the most common memory I have, is oversized, stretched out, tank top, whitey tighties, just
George Costanza.
Yeah. Like straight up. Yeah. Him posing on the couch. That's my dad. And my dad was so interesting. He was so vain. He was completely bald up top.
Right.
But he would grow the sides and the back out so he could wear a hat and make it look like he had a full head of hair. And then he grew out this obnoxious mustache. And he would have 2 combs in the car. So we would pull up to a place. Now, he looks like shit.
Yeah.
But the hair is going to be on point. So we would pull up to a place and he's like, whoa, hold on. And we'd have to wait and he would rip that hat off. He'd grab his brush and make sure that the few strands that he's got left are, where they need to be. He put the hat on, then he'd grab the comb and he'd make sure that the mustache was good. And then we'd go. I mean, it was wild, man. Okay, so the agency won't work with him anymore. So there's at the church that we're in that we've integrated into, and now he's on the praise and worship team. So he's in the church meetings.
Praise and worship team.
Yeah, so. I know. You need a team for that. So they're having a meeting one day, and one of the guys says, oh, by the way, I'm looking for a new accountant at my office. If any of you know anybody that's looking for work, I'm looking for somebody.
I'm an accountant.
Yeah, preferably somebody that's in the church. And yeah, exactly. My dad's like, oh, I'll do it.
Is he an accountant?
I mean, he had a business degree,
maybe.
I mean, he understood that money was a thing,
right?
But I don't know if he understood exactly how it worked.
He needed an accounting degree,
Yeah,
he's not saying he's a CPA, so
right. So he goes to work for this company called Goff and Goff. It was owned by a guy named Michael Goff, and he was there. I don't know, maybe a couple of months, because again, it was, oh man, I really liked this guy before I started working for him, and he's an idiot. Just the way that they file pay, these guys are morons. I could run this company way better. And so he comes home one day and he tells my mom, he's like, you'll never believe what I found out. She goes, what? He goes, they didn't file their taxes properly for the past 3 or 4 years. They're making fraudulent claims on their taxes. And Mom goes, how'd you find that out? He goes, well, today when everyone left the office, I went snooping and I went through this file cabinet and I found all the tax records and I just went through them. And I was like, why? Like, work and make the paycheck. Bring money home to your family. Why are you snooping? I mean, I was like, oh, no, I'm gonna call him out on it. So at the next church meeting, my dad goes, I have a real problem with, the higher ups, preaching about money and preaching about tithing and giving and pay Caesar what is Caesar and God's what is God's. But Michael Goff, you are completely screwing over the IRS with your tax, and like calls him out in front of the entire group. It doesn't go well for him.
Right.
And within a couple of weeks, it's made apparent that we are no longer welcome at this church. And my dad's like, bunch of corrupt, fake Christians. Like, when I bring the light to the sin, I get cast out. It was unbelievable what was going on. All right. So at the time that all this is happening, before we left the church, we were having friends from the church come over. And once we got to know them, my dad would be like, I need to tell you this story because we need prayer warriors on our side. So he would talk about the collection of Bill Gates memorabilia, not how he got it, not any of the other stuff. Just, I have this collection. It's worth a lot. Like, God has told me that we are going to get $2 million from this. I need people to pray with me over this collection because the Bible says that if two or more gather in my name, there I am. So, I mean, we would regularly have 6, 7, 8, 9 people from church come over, and we would all be laying hands on this collection in our living room until like 2 a.m. Like, insane. And Pentecostals, I think you're Catholic, right?
Right.
Yeah, they speak in tongues. It's this made up language. And the thing about it is, every person I've ever known that spoke in tongues, they say the same fake phrase each time. So I heard my dad speak in tongues my entire life. I could still tell you what it sounded like. I could perform it. It's a performance.
My wife's former sister-in-law, they go to a church where they do that. And she's like, I mean, it's just people scream and they speak in tongues. Yeah, she's like,
oh yeah, they pass out. Yeah,
it's too much.
Where I live in Pensacola, I mean, it's predominantly churches like that, and we have a revival area called Brownsville, and you have pastors that decide at 10 p.m. when everyone's ready to go. All right, everyone, single file line. I'm touching everyone's foreheads. There's 3,000 people in that church, and they do, and 2,000 of them like collapse and they're doing this.
They had lay mattresses on the floor.
I mean, literally, like, yeah, they had people catching them and shit. Like, I remember when I was a teenager, like going to a youth group, and one guy did that, and I'm like, oh, here he comes, I'm ready, God, I'm ready. Ow. And be like, wait, what happened? I'm not on the ground. The guy just hit me. Like, right. nothing happened.
It's assault.
Yeah. All right, so yeah, we have people coming over and praying. We're praying as a family. My dad starts preaching to us late at night, like school night. It's 11 p.m. and he's got us on the couch and he's reading scripture to us and preaching to us. And me and my brother are like falling asleep because we have to be up at 5 a.m. to get ready for school. And he's like screaming at us for falling asleep and telling us how disrespectful we're being. Stand up. You're going to stay awake. Stand up. And he would go on for another hour. I mean, it was psychotic. Like, my sister at the time is like 6 or 7, and he's making her stay up. Like, she can't even comprehend what's being read to her, really.
Right.
And in a lot of ways, we couldn't either. So, all right. So basically, Gates Sr. has had enough with people reaching out to him going, he's still writing us letters. He's still sending us this. Now the price is this. Now the price is that. And he just decides, I'm just gonna cut this off. And so basically, our dad, this is actually really funny. He told us one day, Bill Gates is gonna wake up and the Lord is gonna have softened his heart to write us a check for $2 million. One day, I'm gonna walk to that mailbox thinking it's just bills, and our life is gonna change. And it did happen.
Right. But it was a process server?
It was a cease and desist letter. Like, I remember he got the letter and came back in and went, Bill Gates. And we all were like, oh. And I remember when he opened it and he read it, he goes,
He's playing hardball.
Yeah. Yeah. He's offered us $500,000. Should we take it, kids?
Yeah. This is the letter that they give you just before they send you the check.
Well, what this is this is the devil trying to cast doubt on the situation. So what we need to do is lean into it harder with faith.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was a cease and desist letter, basically saying if we hear that you're continuing to offer up these documents, we're going to take you to court. I don't know if they actually have legal recourse because my dad technically owned it.
I was going to say it wouldn't matter.
It wouldn't matter.
You got
financially, he would ruin them.
Well, yeah, you got to go get a lawyer. Mm-hmm. You have to get, and if you stand up and say, "Oh, I'm going to represent myself," okay, well, you're done. You're going to lose.
Yeah,
Even if they're wrong, you're going to lose.
Totally. Yeah.
I've known lawyers there that have said, like, I went to court today, and I won the motion. And you're like, oh, good. And they're like, bro, I never should have won this motion. Like, it was total bullshit.
Yeah.
But the other attorney did. And this is against another attorney, but, he's new. He doesn't really know anything. He wrote a horrible response. The judge was already irritated with him. He went my way. And mine was shit.
I mean, even great lawyers can sack a case. Look at the O.J. Simpson.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Those lawyers shit the bed right and left. Probably would have been a not guilty plea anyway, but then they didn't help
in there, and the whole racist. Even on that case, it always makes me think. Because people are like, oh, he did it. I've always been, yeah, I hear you, but the moment you've got a detective who's sitting in the stand, whether everything he said about the case or not is true, and he's lying and blatantly, he's clearly a racist. Mm-hmm. He's lied in the past. He's lying on the stand saying, oh, I've never used the N-word. Yep. And then they come out and say, oh, you actually tried to retire based on saying that you hated, this race of people. Yep. So I'm sorry, I can't believe you.
Yeah. If you don't handle it with honor.
Right.
Then we kind of have to give it to the other
and
guy.
I feel bad.
Or else we're China.
That's what I'm saying. And listen, I'm not saying he's not guilty. I'm saying in a court of law.
Guilty.
Yeah. In a court of law, I can't find you guilty based on that evidence. And now the evidence is gone.
Right.
Now we didn't find blood.
Yeah.
Now there's no evidence that much evidence that shows that you did it. Like, oh, dude, we got a problem. I can't.
Now he's dead.
Yeah, he is. You know what's funny about that? Listen to this. I got an OJ story. I had somebody reach out to me and say, "Hey, look, I wrote a book about OJ Simpson. There's a whole different angle. Blah blah."
Oh,
blah.
I watched that one.
Right.
Yeah, he was strange.
Yeah. And but here's the thing. It's so sometimes I get great guests, which are like, oh my god, it's going to get 400,000 or 500,000 views. It's amazing. Even if it's 200,000, like, oh my god, this is amazing. I got to, he's famous. It's an amazing story, and he tells it amazingly. Yeah. Great. We talk. I ask some questions. It's a semi-interesting case, but in the end, it reminds me of like Indiana Jones, right? Like, the problem with Indiana Jones is, there's a whole movie about stopping the Germans, the Nazis, from getting a hold of the Ark and opening it.
Right.
In the end, they get a hold of the Ark and they open it. Yeah. Like, what did we just watch all this for? Yeah. Oh, that was super entertaining. So,
well, they did melt that guy's face, so there was a payoff.
Right? Yeah. Like, for the time. Not bad special effects. Anyway, so the point is that I listened to it, whatever. It sat in the queue for weeks.
Yeah.
And it
just low priority.
Yeah, low priority. Yeah. We know it's going to get 15,000 views. So first of all, remote podcasts don't get as many views as in-person podcasts.
Right.
2, wasn't super long. Mm-hmm. Story wasn't super interesting.
I didn't make it through it.
Right.
Because he kept doing this and like all of it. Like he's looking for the story.
In the end.
It didn't seem engaging to me.
Well, in the end, OJ still killed. Like, you didn't come up with it. You just said, hey, there's a guy. Right. There was another guy. And it was because of this. Okay, but...
Well, that's been a theory for...
But didn't OJ still kill her? And kill him and her? Oh, yeah. But not because of why you think. And by the way, there was another guy. I don't give a... Like, that's just stupid.
Yeah.
Who cares? That video was in the queue.
Yeah.
For weeks. Mm-hmm. And then we had put out a video. I want to say we put out a video that didn't do great. And so sometimes... we'll put something out and you think, oh, this is going to do okay. And we'll put it out and it doesn't.
Right.
Like it gets like 6,000 views in 2 days.
Yeah.
Or let's say 6,000 views the first day, or 4,000 or 3,000 first day. And it's like, holy shit. And what that does is it takes our watch time, the average watch time, it starts to dive.
Right.
And we're trying to keep it at a certain level so that over the course of the month, you get a decent check.
So
So
there's so many metrics to this that I've never
oh yeah,
considered.
it's like views don't really mean much. It's watch time, but they're semi connected. Like
so
people,
so you got to keep people engaged. It's not even getting them to click on the video.
oh yeah, I've got videos that have 100,000
Yeah.
that are 2 hours long that have 100,000 views, and the video has made $600. And then we've got other videos that have 100,000 views and are an hour and a half, but people watched more of it,
Right.
and it's $1,400. Even though the same
Is that
views,
monthly or just a one-time?
well, I'm just saying, let's say within a month or two.
Gotcha.
Let's say.
Gotcha.
The point is that we looked at it, and Colby will come back the first day. He'll go, listen, thing's got 3,000, 3,500 views. Maybe it's going to get another. It's going to stop at 5,000 views, 10,000 views. Like, I'm going to go ahead and release that OJ video. At least we can get another 5,000, 6,000
Right.
views. Okay, cool. He releases it. It actually got the first day like 1,500. Sorry, am I saying 100? 15,000 views.
I mean, that's great.
So it was like, wow, that's pretty good. And then the next day, I'm driving to a doctor's appointment, and I'm in my wife's car, and I've got, she's got one of those little arms that holds your phone.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm driving because I went the back way. I don't know the way. And all of a sudden I see I have the push notifications for people that leave comments. And I see that like I'm driving, I'm looking at the MapQuest or the MapQuest. Don't say anything, bro. Don't. The Google map, and it goes bing, 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 bing. Oh, and then it bing, 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 bing. And then I'm like, the fuck? And over the next 5 minutes, like, this thing's going nonstop. And so finally I'm like, what the fuck? And then somebody texts me, and I click on the text, and it says, yo, bro, I don't know if you realize this, but you released a video about OJ yesterday. It was just announced that he died. And I went, holy shit.
So you were first in line before all the other podcasters to talk about OJ.
Exactly. So
everyone went for it.
Oh, anybody who had just heard he died and went on YouTube to try and get the information. My video is like the first one that shows it's got over 500,000 views right now for my shitty little channel.
Oh, wow. That guy got 500.
Are you kidding me? Listen, over the next day, it got 200,000 views. The most any one of my videos has ever gotten ever. And then, of course, it trailed off because within 2 days, everybody jumped on it.
Yeah.
But still, it's now
But you made yours.
It's got over 500,000 views right now.
What timing?
Just a fluke.
Yeah, that's amazing.
What a fluke, but what a great fluke.
Yeah.
Like, fuck.
Very lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, listen, I'd rather be lucky than good.
Oh,
That's
the whole thing. Yeah.
So anyway, sorry, back to your thing.
Okay. Where are we at? Okay, so he gets the cease and desist letter, not the check we thought we were getting. So now he's scared, like, oh man, the family's right. Now he's threatening legal action. And after a few days, so he tells us, he goes, oh, well, I'm gonna fast and I'm gonna pray about this, and I'm gonna consult with God about what the right thing to do is. So yeah, he fasted and prayed for a couple days, and then he came up to us and he said, okay, so this is my plan. I'm gonna box up the entire collection, and I'm just gonna send it to Bill Gates Sr. so that he knows I don't have it anymore and I'm not trying to sell it. And the Lord has told me that if I take that leap of faith, actually sending this collection away, that Bill Gates Sr. will send us a check for $2 million.
God, he's really delusional.
He was all in.
Does your mom have any idea at this point? Like,
no, my mom was in. The thing is, and I'll get to this later, but I don't have a relationship with my mother.
Right.
But I have relationships with people who have relationships with her.
Right.
And according to them, her view on this is, I never believed anything. I never took part in any of the abuse. I was just as abused as everyone else and scared. It was all your dad.
Right.
I don't buy it. Because I wasn't 6 when this happened. I mean, the last time I dealt with both of them, I was 18 years old. So I remember with my 18-year-old adult memory what these people did and what they were like, and I don't buy that. My mom was 100% on board with this.
Right.
Up to a point. There was a point where she jumped off the train, for sure. So yeah, so he sends the collection with a handwritten apology letter. And my uncle and aunts get an update from Gates Sr. He's given this to us with a apology letter, so we consider this to be done now. And so we leave. Well, we got really kicked out of that church once he exposed the tax stuff. So we start going to this smaller church, and I think my dad's plan was, I'm going to integrate into this really small church, and then when we get this money, I'm going to help build it into this bigger church, so I will naturally be given a position of authority and importance, because he really thought he had a direct line to God. Like, he would read you a scripture, and then he would tell you what that scripture meant, and it was not anywhere close to what the scripture was saying. He just felt like he had a special thing. So we start going to this other church, and the biblical brainwashing it gets intense. Like, everything that happened. So, going back to the tithing giving, we had a very close family friend. I won't say their name, but the son was like my best friend. So his parents got pregnant, and it was this big deal because they had struggled to get pregnant for years. They were really trying, and then once they gave up, God has blessed us with a baby. Mm-hmm. And we went to and the dad was actually a surgeon, so very wealthy, of course, family. Right. And it's funny because, like, we always hung out with way better families, and it's only occurred to me as an adult, like, they probably knew exactly what was going on. They probably felt terrible for us, which is why we were allowed over, So we go to the hospital to visit the new baby.
They might have just found your dad entertaining.
They could have been.
Most people that hang out with me just, nothing, because they think, hey, we're on the same level.
Right.
They just think, this guy is entertaining.
Yeah,
like,
he opens his mouth and the party starts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't lend him money.
Right.
But
I wouldn't give him my soch.
He does keep us laughing.
Oh, that's funny. I wouldn't take him to the Bank of America Christmas party.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we arrive at the hospital to visit this new baby, and we found out that the baby was born dead. And the family is absolutely devastated. And on the way home, my dad says, well, it was born dead because they don't tithe.
This guy's just...
Like...
He's just...
And the thing was at the time, it wasn't until I was much older that I realized all this was bullshit.
Right.
So I'm just like, oh, they didn't? Oh, they don't know about tithing? How can they not know about tithing? It's like the main thing. Because, like, did you ever have an allowance when you were a kid?
Yeah.
All right. So we had an allowance. All my friends were getting like $20 a week. We got $2.50 a week allowance. And on an Excel spreadsheet, we had 35 itemized items we had to do every single day from the moment we got up to the moment we went to bed. And if one of them was missed, we did not get the 50 cents for that day. I mean, it's insane.
So I'll just forsake the whole 250. And
well, then you would just get hit. You just get hit. And then at the end of the week, so I mean, he would grab the list, he'd go through the whole thing. And one of them is sweep the kitchen. If it had been longer than an hour since you did that, it might be dirty again.
Right.
So it's like, no, I did, but this is new. We'd be like, nope, not good enough. So if at the end of the week, if we got the $2 or $2.50, we had to tithe and give on that money. So we're already being given slave wages for like dozens of things we have to do for a day. Everyone else I'm seeing, wait, you're getting $20 a week because you take the trash out every night and you do the dishes?
Right.
Can I come live at your house? Like,
right.
What the hell? So we're tithing. So the tithing and giving thing is beaten into us from the time we're little. So it's like, oh man, their baby died. Why didn't they tithe? Why didn't they give? It's so obvious. Like, we're so brainwashed that like tithing and giving is the way to success or to keep your unborn children alive, according to my dad. Yeah. All right, so he does the same thing that he did at the old church. He integrates, he becomes friends. We're the perfect family. The pastors come into our house. We're going to the pastor's house. Church was smaller, so the pastor was a little more accessible. And he would come over, or like people would come over, and he would be like, okay, I need prayer warriors. I need to tell you guys what's happened. But the way he would present the story is, my family stole everything from me. I should have gotten blah, blah, blah from my mom dying, and I didn't. What I got was this collection, and now that's been stolen from me. So now it's really funny. After one of those meetings, we have a family meeting, and my dad says, so I know that everyone is thinking that, it's over because I sent the collection back and all this money that God promised us is not coming, but it's actually not true. It's the opposite. We actually are going to have more money coming now. We're like, okay, how? And he goes, well, I was reminded, I wrote down the scripture, but I forget. I think it's Proverbs something, or Paul something. One of those P chapters. It basically says when a man steals from another man, he must repay 7 times the amount that he stole. So my dad saw this situation as, okay, this is what the Lord has declared, that the Gates family used their power and influence to steal that collection back from me, the collection that God had blessed me with that was going to lead us to this insane wealth. That collection is worth $2 million. So now we're getting 14 million from Bill Gates and his family, unequivocally. Also, and that's just for the collection. All the other stuff that already existed on the Excel spreadsheet from him sending welfare money to John Hagee on TBN, all that's added in. Bill Gates is on the hook for the entire bill. So at this point, it's like 14 and a half or whatever it is. It's freaking nuts. All right. So one Sunday after church, he's like, hey, we're going to go on a little drive. And where to? Well, there's this cool little neighborhood and there's this cool little house that I want to show you guys. And we're like, oh, great. Now, the house that we're living in at this time, it reeked of wet dog. Like whoever had the house the day before us, their dog smell just got into the carpet and they didn't replace the carpet. So our house smelled like wet dog. The crawl space was full of mold and mildew. And my brother's asthmatic. And like black mold was like growing up, like past the carpet onto the wall. He was going to the hospital. The floor in the corner of our room and in the closet was actually coming off the wall. So you could just move it and you'd be looking down into the crawl space. I mean, It is a horrible home. So so when he says there's this cool neighborhood with this cool little house, we're thinking, did he get the Gates money?
Right.
Like, oh, are we moving? This is great news. So this cool little house was a sprawling $1 million mansion that at the time was a model home, and it was called the Bordeaux, and it was in Chesterton, Indiana. I since have tried to find it, and I mean, this is 98 or 99 maybe.
Right.
So if it was ever on the internet, I can't find it now. But we tore through this home, and man, I could describe to you exactly. There's a movie theater, 8 bedrooms, it's a 3-story, and it's sitting on a wildlife preserve that's like a couple acres. I mean, it is a breathtaking home. And so we walk through it, and then we get into the car, and he goes, okay, children, I have something to tell you. We're like, what? He goes, the Lord spoke to me. The Lord led me to this home. That's how I found this home. And the Lord has said that because of our faithfulness of what we have been patient through the last couple years with losing your guys' uncle and aunts and the Gates and the funeral and all of this, this is the home that he's blessing us with for all of our faithfulness.
What's wrong with him? Why do that?
I don't know. I mean, that's the thing, like the why. One thing that comes up for me in therapy is that if I have a why, even if it's fucked up, it helps me with a roadmap to empathy and then forgiveness. And I had to find other roadmaps for this guy because the why doesn't make sense. Like delusion. And my mom's on board, so it's folly ado. It's delusion for 2. And then all of us believe it. So it's a whole family of delusional people.
Well, she's enabling.
100%.
It's like a pathological liar will lie just because they actually derive enjoyment out of fooling someone. They feel better about themselves because they fooled you. Mm-hmm. Even if very quickly their lie will come unraveled and you'll realize that it was all a lie, they can convince themselves that doesn't matter, or that, no, I never said that, or because they can create this own delusion within themselves that
they can get you to buy the second lie that covers the first.
Well, of course, that's what he's doing. He just keeps altering it, altering it. It's always somebody else's fault, and this happened, that's not my fault, and this happened, that's not my fault, and I did this, and they said they do this, and they didn't do this, and the Lord said this, and
Yeah, I don't want to make a blanket statement about Christians because I have a lot of friends and clients who are Christians, and I respect that. But the majority of the Christians that I personally dealt with growing up, because I was raised by this man, were all kind of like him. Like, our actions, no matter how awful, are justified because we have God behind us. And if I do something that's a little fucked up, then on Sunday I'll just ask for forgiveness. And that's just kind of how it was. All right. So we end up touring this home every Sunday for like 2 years. Like the realtors knew us by name. us kids.
Right.
We were given strict instructions, do not say a word when we are in this home. We don't want to give them any indication that we're really interested, even though we're showing up every week. So obviously we're interested. And after a while, the realtors, they would have like our favorite snacks and treats. And I think they just felt bad for us because to look at us, we look poor and we're touring $1 million model home.
Right.
Like, it makes no sense. So yeah, we start doing that, and then my dad starts planning out the cars he's gonna buy and the friends that we're gonna have. And we're told this entire time, from the moment he steals this collection, do not breathe a word of this to any of your friends. We don't want them to know that we have this money coming, and we don't really want anyone to know that we have this money. Those two things make sense. And as soon as we get it, they'll never hear from us again because we will be gone. We are going to leave all of our lower class friends, and we're going to move into the sprawling Bordeaux mansion, and we're going to be going to wine and cheese dinners with our fucking neighbors. Like,
that's what God would want.
Yeah, that's what God is telling us we're going to do with our time and money. So don't tell anyone, because we don't want them to know, and they're never going to see us again anyway. So, okay, so at this point, my grandpa is on his last lungs, really, his emphysema. And with emphysema, you can't get the full breath in. You can't expel it all out, so you get a buildup of stuff in your lungs. It's horrible. So basically, at this time, my aunt is called by my grandpa's doctor. And he goes, hey, there is this surgery that is now just available that can lengthen your father's life for 4 to 7 years. And basically what they do is they take the lower 2/3 of your lung and they just snip it off. And so you can get that full breath. It was about $300,000 for the surgery, and it was not covered by insurance whatsoever. So at this time, the inheritance basically the amount of money that's available, like if he died that day, all 4 kids get this amount.
Right.
And it would take all 4 kids giving almost all their inheritance away to pay for my grandpa to have this surgery, which my uncle and my aunts, they were like, absolutely, we would rather have him than the money. Because they also, because they loved my grandpa, they're genuine people, but also money's not really a problem for them. They're all successful, you know. My dad's the one that's not, so that's a problem for him because he wants that money, and he doesn't care if my grandpa dies or not. It didn't seem like he cared when my grandma died. So my uncle calls my dad and says, hey, there's this surgery. It costs this much. Like everything I just told you, he lays it out. He goes, but you're gonna have to give like 80% or something, 90% of your inheritance for us to pay for this. Now, my grandfather, saint of a man, amazing. I've never heard anyone say a bad word. My grandmother, though, not the same, and she made his life hell. And it was, hey, we want to keep him around, but he also deserves a few more years on this earth away from your grandmother, like an actually good life.
Right.
What do you say? And my dad says, nah. He's had a good run. I'm not doing it. He wanted that money, man. Like, I think he was so desperate because the Gates money had not come in, and he was refusing to work.
The Gates money, there was
never. I know,
Gates money.
It's so crazy, right? So I think like having that inheritance he was banking on my grandpa dying and him getting that money because he was hitting. I think that inside maybe he knew that this wasn't working out. But if I just got some more money, it would buy me some more time to say some more prayers and recruit more religious people in on this ridiculous scheme. So he does not agree to the surgery, and my grandfather dies because of it, pretty quickly after that. So my uncle calls my dad and says, hey, we're going to do it the same way we did it with mom. The estate is going to pay for you and the kids to fly out, and we'll put you up wherever you want. You can choose. I know that things have been not great the last couple of years, but you got to come say bye to dad. Or actually, I'm sorry, I'm going to back up. He actually called my dad a week before my grandpa died and said, our dad's dying wish is to see you. You need to get on a plane. And my dad said, no, I'm not coming. Like, I'd rather remember him the way that I knew him. I'm too busy. I'm not coming. So dying wish, he won't go say goodbye to his dad. So then his dad dies.
I cut him out of the will.
That was,
that's what I don't understand.
After all of this, it would have been the right thing to do, but my grandpa was not that kind of man. My grandpa was a righteous man. I have a few really cool memories because I was younger, but he is the type of person that I aspire to be for my child and my grandchildren. I want them to tell stories about me the way that my uncles and aunts tell stories about my grandpa. Yeah. So he dies and he's like, oh, we're going to work it out the exact same way. It'll be, he was also cremated. So, it's not a rush to get you guys up here. And my grandpa had set aside $40,000 for his funeral. Like rent a yacht, get all your buddies, come out, and it's a party. Like, I don't want a stuffy church funeral like your mother had. I want you guys to celebrate my life as if I'm still there. And my dad knows this. Like, man, it's a blowout party, man. We're doing it, blah, blah, blah. So they buy the plane tickets, they pay for the hotel reservation. And then the day before, my dad says, I'm just too busy with work meetings right now. I've got a lot of business meetings coming up that I'm just too busy. I'm not going to come. And my uncle's like, what are you talking about? Like, it's tomorrow. He goes, yeah, I'm just too busy. Can't make it. I'd rather just remember him the way he was. We all know how that other funeral went. We're just not going to come. The thing is he told us from the beginning we weren't coming. We knew that entire time. I only just recently found out that conversation happened. I thought he just turned it down from the gate because he told us like, hey, your grandpa died, but we're not going to go.
Right.
And we're all on board because he's completely turned us against our uncle and aunts. So at this time, like legitimately, I didn't like them either because he's been telling me lies for years. And I think that they are with our God promised wealth.
Right.
And, you don't go up against God. It's a terrifying issue when you're a kid. So we don't go. It was insane. So my dad gets the inheritance.
Right.
110,000. Now it's 99. 110,000 in Indiana is a ton of money. He could have bought a home for 50.
And
60.
I was going to say 99.
Yeah. He could have bought 2 homes and paid for one off of the rent from the other if he was so smart and so money savvy. But he doesn't do that. He blows the 110 grand. How
does he blow it? What does he buy?
Oh my God. So back then the big screen TVs were the big, like wide, deep boxes.
Yeah, those are a few $1,000s, right? Because weren't they just coming out? Or?
Yeah, they were just coming out. The DVDs had just come out. They were $50 a pop. So he buys big screen TV, huge sound system. We've got a library of DVDs. We've got satellite TV. He buys 2 new cars. He buys music instruments. He's sending thousands of dollars to televangelists on TV. He's giving thousands of dollars to our local church.
A house?
No house. My mom begged him to buy a house.
So he bought all depreciating items.
Yes, because that was the play money.
Right.
The real money
was
coming later from the Gates. So this is just to tide us over, to give us a little taste of the rich lifestyle. So if you can imagine the shittiest house on the block filled with the greatest things inside.
Right.
Like, I mean, no thief would ever break in there because of how it looked on the outside. The inside did not match the outside. And he's buying these things, and my mom is begging him, like, buy us a home.
Right.
And he goes, what about the Bordeaux? She goes, when we get the Gates money, we can move into the Bordeaux. Right. But right now, we are living in a dilapidated house. Like, you get us a home. We could have just moved into a better house and rented it.
Right.
We didn't even have to buy a home. He doesn't do that. And one day I was homesick, and my parents, they wouldn't fight in front of us, but they would fight in the next room where we could clearly hear everything.
Right.
And she was screaming at him like, all these years that you have not worked, all these promises that have not come true, and you get this money and you spend it, why do we not have a home? And I remember this was the first time where I realized, like, oh, things are not as good as we're being told. He told her, when your ass is not as big as this garage, I will listen to you.
Oh my, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So hearing that from your dad for the first time, it was like, oh shit, things are not okay. And at this time, we're still touring that house every Sunday, but we're pulling up to that house in a nicer car, wearing nicer clothes. Things are looking like we're doing well when we're not doing well. He spends his last $24,000 on leads. He tells us, like, oh, I'm going to restart my business, and I have found this lead company that has high quality leads. Like, every lead is a closure. I just have to do the work, which, That's bullshit.
Yeah.
Leads are exactly that. They're maybes.
Yeah.
Spends 24,000.
I can't imagine spending 24,000 on leads for one person to work. How can one person work those leads before they become irrelevant? Like leads are only good for a few days.
Yeah, exactly. And it was 2 separate transactions. It was 12,000 for this bunch of leads that were all bunk, and then he spent another 12,000 for this bunch of leads that were all bunk, and now we don't have any money, and it's everyone else's fault. Not to, let's ignore what does that equal? 85,000 that you spent? No, that last 24 really wrecked us.
Right.
So we start selling everything for pennies on the dollar. Like having garage sales, like this guitar that he bought for $1,000, he's selling it for $200, and we barely get any of that money back. It's just all gone. So me and my brother had both gotten these government bonds that our grandma took out for us when we were kids, and they would mature when we were 18. It'd be $1,000 payout. Well, they convinced us to go cash those in early, give them the money so they could get us a car. They did pay us back eventually, but we didn't get the 1,000 that we were supposed to get, and we didn't even know about those bonds until they were like, hey, we've got an idea. You kids are going to buy us a car, basically. All right. So yeah, money is gone. And at this time, the abuse really ramped up. I think my dad was so desperate and so just up from what was going on and so stressed out that he actually started getting physical with us kids, where we got spanked when we were kids. I don't spank my child because of this. And they started off as spankings, and then it became the littlest things that just go to your room should cover. No, we were getting spanked. And then those spankings were going on longer and longer and getting more and more painful. And then they became bare butt spankings, and then they became bare butt with the belt, and then they became bare butt with the belt buckle. And my dad would start and he would just lose it. And we would just have welts on our backs and on our upper thighs. He started just flying off the handle, screaming at you for nothing. And when this is all going on and you're a kid and you're in survival mode in your own home, I was also getting bullied at school. So I was kind of in survival mode everywhere. I was taller than I should have been. I was thicker than I should have been. I wasn't manly enough. And so I got bullied and teased and beat up. So I'm just flipped out. And at some point, my dad came at me and I lost it. I didn't know how to react. Well, that reaction is a direct rebellion against his authority. So the beatings got worse. I mean, it was unbelievable. And he came up with these really weird rules for the house where my brother, not a good student, really struggled in school. C average was the best he could do if he studied every day. Well, all of a sudden my dad's like, if you don't get a B average, you're grounded till your next report card, knowing my brother could never pull that off. My brother was grounded for 2 straight years. He did that just to target my brother because it made him feel good. My brother would come home, it's summertime. We have summer plans and his report card is a 2.98. My dad won't let it slide. Brought it up from where it was before to almost a B, and my dad wouldn't give it to him. He made us answer the phone in a really weird way. All of a sudden, he was like, okay, this is how you're going to answer the phone. So say my last name's Smith. Jesse Smith residence, Jesse Smith speaking. God damn it. Who answers the phone like that in 6th grade? Someone who wants to get teased and beat up. And we were begging him, don't make us answer the phone like that. If that hits the school, we're going to get made fun of for that. Well, I don't care. We're doing it. So we would just not answer the phone. And it would be the phone would ring and me and my brother would look at each other are you getting it or I'm getting it? We would both start backing up out of the room and our dad would be like, get that phone. Okay. So that, or if he called us from the next room, we had to say, yes, sir, I'm coming immediately. If there was even a 2-second delay, we were in trouble. I mean, or if I remember one time I was eating when he said it and I'm chewing, I'm trying to swallow, I'm coming. And because I skipped the yes, sir, I got in trouble. I mean, it was Nazi regime bullshit. Because he was losing control over everything else. So the control at home became crazy and the punishments were insane. I walked home one day from school and I found a broken lighter on the ground and I put it in my pocket to throw away when I got home. Not trying to be an angel or anything, but I picked it up. It didn't work. I'm like, I'll toss it when I get home. Forget it's there. My mom finds it in my pocket when she's doing laundry. And my dad took a metal ruler and beat my hands with it. Just insane shit like that was going on. So then eventually we find out that the Bordeaux is going up for auction. The big house.
Right.
So it's going to be auctioned on a Saturday in like a month. So us kids are like, oh man. And my dad's like, no, that means the money is almost here because this is the house that we're getting. Right. And if it's going on sale in a month, we're going to have it within a week or two. And my brother says, oh, you know what? God actually spoke to me and said,
Your brother?
My brother, yeah.
He said he wants you to buy me a bike today.
Yeah, right. He said, buy that bike, you'll get the check tomorrow. No, he says, the Lord spoke to me very clearly and said the money is coming on a Thursday. And my dad's like, great. So now on Thursday, we all pray at the mailbox before he opens it up, and there's no letter in there. And then my sister eventually said that she also heard that. So it comes to the Thursday before the Saturday that this auction is happening, which, as you know, you get a check for $14 million on a Thursday. Doesn't it take some time to clear your account before you start spending that money? Like, we're not buying a home on Saturday. That's crazy. But that Thursday, we went to the mailbox and it was empty and that house got sold. So my mom was out at that point. She was like, this is bullshit. Like, I'm not going, and doesn't pull us out of it. She just separates. So she had been going to nursing school. She started doing clinicals. And every clinical that she had turned into a double shift because she didn't want to be home with our dad. But that meant that we were home alone with him.
Right.
And he started to get really aggressive and just mean for no reason. And if we reacted to it at all, we were dealt with pretty brutally. So he tells us, so one Sunday we go to church and mom doesn't come. Afterwards, he's like, hey, we're going to go on a drive. Okay.
Is she plotting her, like, do you think she's
plotting an escape? Yeah, 100%.
I'm getting out, putting some money aside, doing whatever.
Yeah, I'm gonna get the nursing career going, and once I got that, I'm taking the kids and we're out.
My mom did that. She went and got a 4-year degree in education,
Yeah.
thinking at some point I'm leaving.
Yeah.
She never did.
Yeah.
But that was the plan.
4 years. Wow. I think it was 2 between her starting and her getting us out.
Well, I think she already had, when they got married, she already had a few years.
Oh,
so she only had like 18 months or a year to go or something.
Gotcha. So, yeah, this was a long 2 years. I mean, I don't want to judge her for taking 2 years to get us out of that home, but really it took her 16 years to get us out of that home. We should have been out when we were babies.
Right.
But whatever. It's not my thing. So he's like, hey, we're going to go for a drive today. And we're like, okay. So he takes us back to the same neighborhood that the Bordeaux is in. And we were like, why are we here? He goes, well, I got a little surprise for you. So when you enter in this neighborhood, you kind of drive at a decline, and there's the Bordeaux, and then you can turn left and turn right, and it's a sprawling neighborhood of mansions. He turns right, and we go all the way down to where the neighborhood stops, and there's an even bigger mansion on an even bigger nature preserve. And this house is like $2 million. And he's told us, the Lord spoke to me so clearly and said, through all of the sacrifice that we've made, we have not lost faith, up to and including the house that he promised us being gone. So this is the house he's giving us. And we're like, wow, crazy. Have you told mom? And he goes, well, your mom doesn't have any faith. So the Lord also told me that when this money comes in, we're leaving your mom. If your mom's not going to have faith, then she's not going to reap the benefits of the Lord's wealth, and she will be left to deal with that on her own while we are in this mansion. Okay, like fine, and it was one of those things where it was like, at the time I was like, oh, that's sad, like them divorcing. Now I'm just like, that's really f***ed up.
I think at the time you might have been like, well, since the money's never coming anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think at this point, he's dug himself so deep and he realizes this is not going to happen. It's not going to happen through prayer, and it's not going to happen through any of that. So he's going to switch strategies and actually sue the Gates family. This man with no money is going to find an attorney to hoodwink into suing them, and he does. He reaches out to a bunch of lawyers. I remember one of them was named Tom Anderson. I don't know if he's the lawyer that took him, but he was the one that he was like, this is my guy. He got turned down by all of them except for one. And whoever this guy was sent a letter to Gates Sr. basically saying, we intend on bringing charges against you in court for stealing this memorabilia, blah, 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 blah. Gates Sr. sees it and is like, what the fuck? So just immediately sends the guy a cease and desist. If we hear from you again, we will wreck you, kind of thing. And then he calls my family, my uncle, and says like, I received a letter from an attorney. And now Mike's saying he's going to press charges against me. And they're just like, oh my gosh, we're so sorry. And he's like, well, it's fine because we sent the cease and desist, so we don't see this going any further. And then a month later, my uncle gets another call from Bill Gates Sr. He goes, well, we heard more from Mike. And I received a letter from him. I want to talk to you guys about the letter, but it needs to be in person. Because I think at this point, he was getting a little suspicious of my aunts and uncle. Like,
Right.
Are you guys just keeping me occupied with what I want to hear while he pulls this shit? Are
Right,
you
but
involved?
you're in on it.
Right. He wasn't sure. He wanted to look them in the eye. So they came over to my aunt's house and they all sat around this table. It was Bill Gates Sr. and his attorney, my uncle and my two aunts. And he proceeds to read portions of this letter that my dad had sent him. And my uncle said he did not read the whole thing. He kept most of it private. But one of it was, let's see.
Oh, this is like just allegations of.
Basically, so the letter began with, Mr. Gates, these are the undisputed facts of the case I will be bringing against you. And basically he's saying that the Gates family interfered with our family business to such a degree that they not only stole this collection and in turn our wealth, but pressured my uncle and aunts to not allow my dad to come say goodbye to his dad before he left and to not come to the funeral, which is blatant bullshit.
Right.
My uncle begged my dad to come and my dad just would not do it.
Right.
And then so basically when he said that, my uncle burst into tears and my aunts burst into tears. And then Bill Gates Sr. burst into tears. And then his attorney cried. Everyone in this room was bawling. The attorney really is the one that's surprising. Everyone else, they grew up with Mike,
right.
And this Gates Sr., who was so generous and loving and giving to Mike, has gotten this in response, these like allegations and harassment and bullshit. So the letter ended with, therefore, due to these infractions against my family, we demand $18 million in compensation. And I always wondered if there was any God shit in there.
Right.
And maybe that's why he didn't read it, because he's like, well, that's ridiculous. I'm not even going to go into that. But I wonder if my dad quoted those scriptures and basically was like, you don't want to go against God.
Right.
Mr. Gates.
I actually was thinking he might have like sexual allegations or something as a child. This happened or so, I was like,
I mean, possibly
how much of a, how devious, was he willing to go on this? But okay,
I wouldn't put him past it.
Even that is just stupid. So
yeah.
It's a nuisance lawsuit.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, basically my aunt and uncles said, hey, we don't want you to go public with this because it's our family, but if you do, we understand. And if you take this to court, we'll testify on your side.
Right.
We're not standing with him, whatever you decide to do. And again, just like going back to, I don't know the Gates, but the way they decided to not pursue this in court or publicly at all. They completely let it go.
Right. And your father never filed.
No.
Okay.
No, I mean his attorney had already gotten the cease and desist. So my dad, I think that was the Hail Mary.
I was going to say, yeah, the cease and desist doesn't stop you from filing.
No.
But I think probably, and this is funny because just from owning apartment complexes, or they weren't complex. Well, I did own one complex, but from owning rental units, periodically I've received a letter from an attorney. And what happens, actually one time I bought a bunch of desks from a guy.
Yeah.
Like he handmade, or he custom made these desks for my office, and I was making payments to him. And anyway, he ended up getting an attorney to write me a letter to say he was going to file a lawsuit and do all these other things, because it's a little bit more complicated than that. But he ends up writing a letter. But because I've had apartment complexes, I know that if you call enough attorneys, you can find an attorney that'll say, look, I'm not going to file a lawsuit. There's nothing I can do for you. You didn't pay your rent. You're getting kicked out.
Right.
I'm sorry that 2 of your plugs didn't work and there was a leak that took 2 weeks to get fixed.
Yeah.
But guess what? Tough shit. and you're going to have to pay me to file this lawsuit. You'll never get anything back. You might get another month or two. But what I could probably do, I could probably stop this guy, or maybe even get you 30 days or 60 days reprieve from the eviction.
Yeah.
But you're going to have to give me like $300 to write a letter.
Right.
So if you give a lawyer $300 to write a letter, he'll write one letter.
Yeah.
And
you just find the one with the least amount of stars on Yelp. They need your business.
Right. And what I would always do is, and I knew this, right? My brother-in-law was a lawyer. I'd call my brother-in-law. He'd go, okay, here's what just happened. They gave him $300 or $400, wrote him a letter. That's all you're going to hear. I go, well, what do? He goes, write him a letter back. The attorney's forced to write a letter back. Respond to that letter. You'll never get another letter, because at that point they're going to go back to your client and say, give me some money. I was supposed to write one letter. I'm up to 3 letters. Give me some more money. They're going to realize, okay. So that's what I always did. I wrote a letter back. They wrote a letter back. I wrote a letter back. And then I never heard from the people again. It was the same thing that that's probably like what your daddy did. This guy said, well, I can start the process and I'll write a letter for nothing. Or he asked for $400 or $300.
Right. Yeah. And I think the 18 million letter was the Hail Mary.
Yeah.
Like, just, I'm going to send this off. I'm going to have everyone pray over it. And if this doesn't work.
Yeah.
And it didn't.
Yeah.
It didn't. So my mom left my dad, and my dad disappeared.
What happened? Just was it one day she just was gone?
No. Well, she told me and my brother that she was divorcing him, and me and my brother were like, finally. We were so happy, but we had to keep it from our sister. Our sister was too young to really understand what had been going on. She understood that shit wasn't right, but she didn't get it. So yeah, my mom found a house for us to move into, and then we sat down as a family, and me and my brother pretended to find out for the first time that they were divorcing, pretended to be upset. We move into that house, and my dad disappeared for months. And
what did he say when she was leaving? Said, I'm leaving. Was he upset, or just like, fine, go?
He threw her up against the wall. I remember that. Yeah. Because we were outside and we heard the thump. Basically, it was her telling him, this is how this is going to go down. These are the dates that I'm leaving this home. These are the dates you need to be out of this home. And he grabbed her and threw her up against the wall.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he got violent about it. But he didn't have a choice. What was he going to do? So we move into this other house, and he just vanished. Like, we had no idea where he was. And then he popped up maybe 4 months later, wrote my mom this long letter about, I'm in Pensacola now, which he had never even been to Florida, so I don't know why he went. But he was in Pensacola, and he was saying, I've been diagnosed with bipolar issues and manic depression, and I'm on meds, and I want to fix the family, and blah, blah, blah. And my mom just goes for it.
Are you serious?
Well, it gets worse than that. She says yes. They start to make plans to move us to Florida. And then he sends her a follow-up letter and says, hey, all that stuff I said, I was wrong. I just met this other girl, and she's my soulmate. I know it 100%, so good luck with the kids, and you'll never hear from me again. And my mom is telling all of us this. Like, she used us as her emotional support, which is so terrible to do to your children, because you have to walk all this back when you decide to get back together. You know? So kids never know what's true. So then a couple months goes by, and he sends her another letter. Hey, I was wrong about that. I actually do want you back. I want to fly you to Florida for 2 weeks. I want to show you where I live. And my mom did it. She just, I was in 10th grade at the time. My sister's in 6th or 7th, and my brother had graduated. She just left us. Like, money for pizza on the counter, see you in 2 weeks type of thing. And then when she came back, the word was, we're moving. And she told my brother, I'm getting back together with your dad, and we're all moving to Florida. And my brother said, okay, I'm moving out today. And he went home and packed his shit and left. And
how old was your brother?
18. He had just turned 18. My mom did not care. My mom cared more about having her husband back than she did the safety and well-being of her own children. And so she was encouraging me to talk to my dad. And so I would talk to him every few days on the phone or whatever. But at this point, so I had stopped getting bullied by this point. I'd lost a bunch of weight. I had my first girlfriend. I'd started skateboarding. I had my first band. Things were actually going, like, I had a job. Things were like way better for me. And I'm actually like happy and comfortable. So my dad called me one night, and he was like, how are you feeling about moving to Florida? This is a couple of days after Halloween. So beginning of November. And he's telling me we're not moving to Florida till next year. So how are you feeling about it? And I'm like, I'm feeling really sad about it. Like, all this bullshit that I went through, and now I'm not getting bullied anymore, and life is good for me, and I have friends, and I have a girlfriend. I don't understand why you can't move back up here. because we have a whole life. We've been here for a long time. And I was crying. I wasn't being disrespectful. I was like very upset. 2 days later, it's a last period at school, and I get called down to the principal's office. And when you get called down, you're like, oh shit, like, well, I did take that one thing. I did write that one thing on that wall. Did they find out that was me? I'm walking to the office going, I don't know what I did. I can't think of a damn thing that I've done that I could get in trouble for. So I walk into the principal's office, and there's a principal, and there's my mom, and there's my dad. I'm like, what are you doing here? I thought you were in Florida. And they had me sit down, and my dad explains that he told everyone about the threats that I made the 2 nights before about how I'd run away. They would never see me again if I tried to force them to make me move, and how I had threatened him and swore at him. None of this is true. Not even close. And I am just like, what are you talking about? None of that happened. You're saying, like, in front of the principal, you're saying I'm a liar? And I'm like, yeah. Like, because the principal's here, so I think I'm safe.
Yeah.
I'm not safe. Basically, they send somebody to get my shit out of my locker, and they remove me from the school, and I didn't get to say goodbye to anybody. I get home, and 3/4 of the house is packed up because they've had movers there all day packing stuff, and we're leaving in the morning. And I am in shock. I cannot believe what I'm hearing. And I'm standing in the kitchen. I remember this like it was yesterday. I'm standing in the kitchen, and I can't speak because I'm still processing what I'm finding out. And my dad is like, say something. And all I could say was, I hate you for what you've done. And the next thing I knew, it was like getting hit by a truck. My dad was 6'4", 230 pounds, broad shoulder, just a massive man. And he slammed me so hard into that fridge and then threw me to the ground and was on top of me. And I'm breathing hard, and his hands are on my chest, and I black out. And I woke up to my mom screaming at him to get off of me. What are you doing? And I mean, you know, looking back, it's like, here's the proof before you removed me from the state that this wasn't getting better. And you still removed me from the state. My friends had no idea what happened to me. For years, they had no clue. I didn't reconnect with anyone until I had already graduated high school. And that's when I told everyone what happened. And they were like, we didn't know what happened. You were just gone. Like, we didn't know if you died, if there was an accident. Like, and after a while, we quit asking. So I'm in the moving truck to Florida, just looking at the next 3 years of my life, knowing how it was going to go. And it went worse than the 5 years before. I mean, the abuse was unbelievable. I know you're trying to keep this a little bit shorter, so I'll spare some details. But in Florida, he wasn't able to keep it to the family. My friends saw exactly who he was. Like, he would just fly off the handle, start screaming at my friends. He pushed my mom in front of a bunch of my friends. He made me walk my girlfriend home late at night down a very busy highway because he said he would take her home at 7 p.m. He walks in the room. He's like, you ready to go? We literally have 2 minutes left of the movie. Be like, can we wait 2 minutes? It's almost over. Yeah, you can wait 2 minutes. And then he leaves the room. And when it ends, hey, we're ready to go. Oh, no, I said your ride would be at 7, not at 7:02. So you can walk her home. So her parents were furious. And I never saw her again. Like, I was forced to break up with her. So that kind of shit went on for 3 years until it got to the point where when I was 17, I was bigger, and I would start kicking trash cans at him. Him and I would get into it physically because I was bigger. So I felt like I could, you know. But I had lost a ton of weight because I was under so much like stress and anxiety, which I didn't even know what that was at the time, that I just wouldn't eat. Like, I couldn't get food down. And then after you go a couple of days without food and you're like mentally sharp, it felt good. So I would just keep not eating. And my mom ended up one day during my senior year, she came and picked me up and said, we're going to go run an errand. And I was like, all right. And she took me to a psychiatrist's office. She sat me down with this guy, and she said, I need you to tell this guy everything that's been going on in our home since your grandma died. And I was like, what?
How much time do we have?
Yeah. And I refused. I wouldn't do it. So she goes, okay, will you talk about the last 3 years? I was like, all right. Because he was doing this crazy shit where he would be in your face screaming and spitting and shove you and throw you to the ground. And then 3 hours later, he's keeping you up until 1 a.m. telling you about the benefits that he feels from 3 months of echinacea golden seal supplementation. Like, I mean, just insanity.
Yeah,
So
it's just bipolar. It definitely sounds like bipolar.
it's something for sure. So yeah, I told this guy all of that, and he didn't explain what any of it meant to me. He just told me to leave the office. My mom comes back in, and he's like, you need to remove these children. Like, what are you doing? So she did. We moved into like a little duplex a few blocks away, and my dad moved into the house that was next to the house we were living in. It was owned by this old guy, and a bunch of bachelors were all living there. Like, you get your own room and you pay rent.
Right.
And I went there once. He had begged me to come visit him, and I walk in, and it's like this guy's entire life is reduced to a desk that's like half the size of this one. And in the corner, he's got the Monday through Friday fast food coupons that inform where he's going to eat that week because he has no money. And he's got his laptop and his Excel spreadsheet, and that's all he's got in his room. It was very sad. So when I was a senior, I come home from school one day, and my mom says, hey, your dad's landlord was here, and he's looking for him. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, he went to go collect rent, and the laptop and the Excel spreadsheet and his clothes were gone. The desk was there, but everything else was gone. I was like, oh, that's crazy. And she goes, yeah, so if you hear from him, you need to let me know. I said, okay. And then within a few days of that, I come home, and she says, I need to tell you something really serious, and I need you to not tell your sister. Okay. And she goes, the police were here today. They found your dad's car parked at a parking lot out at the Bluffs with some personal items still in it. So we're not sure what's going on. Like,
What are the Bluffs?
the Bluffs are just this like hiking trail that's right on the water where I live. Yeah. Actually, the parking lot where they found his car is less than a mile from my front door.
Okay.
So I've been driving past it every day for 2 years. And it was only a few months ago that I even told anyone, like, oh, you want to hear something crazy about that parking lot? And it was my now ex-fiance. And she was like, why have you never told me that? I was like, it doesn't occur to me to talk about him.
Right.
Like, it just doesn't, unless I give, like, hey, you're going to hear some sad shit that I got to talk about, which I don't feel like saying that ever. So I just don't talk about him.
So he faked, like, he's no note.
No notes. What the cops said were, we found bodies out there. People decide to end their own lives. We might not find a body. If he was in the water, a shark could get him. He might have left with someone, but these personal items are something you'd want to keep with you.
Plus your car. Big thing to walk away with.
Yeah.
If you're thinking, I'm going to start my life over again, probably going to need a car.
Yeah, you're not going to walk to that life.
Yeah.
So basically, they were treating it as a missing person. But me and my mom talked about it, and I was like, do you think he might have offed himself? And she goes, honestly, at this point, yeah. He lost everything. The Gates thing didn't work out. The second chance at the marriage didn't work out. She had taken him to court for child support, and he had tried saying, well, I'm not working, so I'm not paying anything. And the judge was like, no, you will pay something.
Right.
I will put you at minimum wage, and in 3 months, I'm going to see you again, and you better have a fucking job. He didn't like that. It was the day after that he disappeared.
All right.
Yeah. Well, classy guy.
Right.
So yeah, believed that he had offed himself. And so after that, my mom pieced out, and we have no relationship. She didn't even try really to keep in contact with me after she left the state.
What do you mean pieced?
Pieced out. So we're in Florida. So my mom just decided, so I had moved out and gotten my first apartment. My brother was in Indiana. So she's like, I'm out of here. I'm going to go to California and do
How old were you?
18.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Did you say that? I missed it?
No. I moved out very shortly after turning 18.
So you were 18.
Yeah.
She just said,
I'm gone.
See ya.
Yeah, I got my first apartment. She never even came to see my apartment.
What about your daughter? I mean, what about your sister?
She took her with.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my sister's 14 at this time. So my mom spent the next, 2 years traveling all over California, putting my sister in school, pulling her out of schools, doing traveling nursing. And I just had completely lost contact with them. And I didn't want contact with them because my mom was no better than my dad. My mom, when we left my dad and it was just her and me, she took over the role of him. Like, she was awful to me. And then would lean on me for emotional support when I couldn't even fathom what I was feeling, let alone how do I tell this woman it's going to be okay? I don't think it's going to be okay either. So they leave, and for a few years, I'm great. Like, I'm happy. I went to college. I got an education. I did a tattoo apprenticeship, became a tattoo artist. I was traveling around, but I was also partying a lot, and I was drinking. I was doing a lot of drugs. So for me, I'm just like, oh, all this bullshit from my past is over, so my life is just good now. And it wasn't good because I turned into him exactly when it came to relationships. I had no idea how to be like a good or like healthy or supportive partner. All I had was this like child abuse and abandonment trauma in me. So I could meet someone and would legitimately be very nice to them and care about them. But the second they did, and it could be 2 weeks into a relationship or 2 years, the second they did something that felt like rejection or abandonment, I would lash out aggressively and just ruin that relationship. I did it to friends. I did it to girlfriends for a long time. So yeah, you fast forward 7 years and I'm living in Minnesota randomly because I've ruined every relationship that I have. So I just keep moving. I'm being my dad basically. And
how old are you now?
I'm 20 right now.
Yeah.
38.
Okay.
Yeah. So 7 years after he vanishes, I'm 25. I'm living in Minnesota. I'm making no money as a tattooer. I'm desperate. I'm living in this shitbox apartment. I'm sharing a laptop with my roommate. And I get on Facebook one day and there's a message from this woman. And it's, hey, is your dad's name?
Right.
And it was. And
right.
he's got a unique middle name too. So I was like, yeah, that was my dad's name. Why do you ask? And she goes, oh, well, my name is blah, 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 and I live in North Carolina.
You say was because at this point you genuinely believe he's dead.
Oh, I never questioned it.
Okay.
I would tell people that he died of cancer because people stopped asking questions when I said died of cancer, but didn't stop asking questions when I said I didn't know where he was or what happened.
Right.
To him.
Or, oh, we just found his car and he disappeared.
Right. I think he's dead. So I just started saying, yeah, he's dead. Yeah. And I believed it. I don't know if I believed it because I truly believed it or if it's like what you said. You say it enough times, it becomes truth to you. But I never expected to hear another word about him in my life. And here's this woman and she says, yeah, my name is blah blah blah, I live in North Carolina. Your father's been living with me for several years now and he's in very poor health and he misses his children. He doesn't feel that he got a fair shake with his children, and before he passes he would like to reconnect. And I am just like, what? Like, are you kidding me? And I click on the profile, and the profile had just been made the day before. And it had no personal pictures. Yeah. Like one picture was like it looked like someone was sitting on their porch and they took a picture of like a lake. Right. And then another one was like a rocking chair. Yeah, and that was it. And I read the message again, and I read it again, and I was like, this is my dad that wrote this. Right. The language that he used was very specific. The term didn't get a fair shake was something I heard him say 1 million times. The more I read it, the more I was convinced that this woman did not exist.
Right.
So I get really drunk. Like I end up walking to this bar and I got wasted and I walked back home and I was like, I'm going to take care of this. And I open up the laptop and I fire off a that guy. He chose exactly what, he got the fairest shake that he could. He abused his children and abandoned them. We are not interested in reestablishing contact. I will just speak for all of us. And I sent it off and I went to sleep. And the next day I woke up hungover and I went to see if there was a reply. Not only was there no reply, the profile had been deleted. So the message chain had been deleted and no one has heard from him ever since. I've used his social security number to try to like track him down, and his paper trail ends the day he disappeared, except for a very brief time he was staying in a homeless shelter in Evanston, Illinois, which would have been roughly 5 miles from where he worked for Raytheon. But when you pull the background checks, the dates of when he had certain phone numbers and when he was at certain addresses were not accurate. So I think that he was at that homeless shelter when my mom left him. Okay. Yeah, so I don't think it was recent. So maybe he is dead. Maybe some person was fucking with me on Facebook, or he's out there alive. I don't know. It's a mystery, but I have not been able to find a scrap of a paper trail. So he either changed his name and he's listed in a death registry under someone else's name, or he's a John Doe, or he's living somewhere.
How old would he be?
71. And the last time that I saw him, he was not in good health.
Right.
He had bad knees and bad shoulders. He would fluctuate between 300 plus pounds to 180. So he would get to 300 plus when he was at the height of being abusive, and my mom would leave. So he dropped to 180 and then get her to come back because he's looking better and he's trying to be nice and all those things. So don't know whatever happened to him. But the aftermath in my life was, I mean, I basically became him in a lot of ways. I don't think I would have scammed anyone for money.
It was better hair.
Better hair. Well, I've had
hair.
I've had hair transplants.
No, you have not.
I've had 5. Yeah.
No. Bro, like what a...
I had a really good surgeon. I'll show you the before photo when we get off here.
Oh, I'm telling you right now, I need that surgeon.
I'll give you his number.
Because I need at least...
Yours looks great.
No, stop. I need at least one more surgery.
I mean, are you just not happy with the density?
I'm not happy with the density. I was supposed to have 3 surgeries.
Yeah.
And I had 2, and then I got arrested by the Secret Service.
Oh,
and, they don't do it in prison.
Oh,
I know.
And they wouldn't let you out for a day?
I had a conversation. It was a no-go.
Had a conversation.
I felt like I made excellent points.
Yeah. Well, when did you start to lose it?
Oh, I mean, it started receding when I was probably in my late 20s.
Oh, you had a great run then.
Yeah. But it started receding. You know, it's like it's slipping off the back of your head, right?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
So I got like an inch here and 2 inches here.
Yeah, mine started in the back, which I would rather lose the front than the back. There's something about when a guy has all this but nothing in the crown, I'm just like, poor guy. But if the guy's got a full crown but his hairline's just receding, I'm like, yeah, you look great.
You know what used to bug the shit out of me? Is that he would shave his fucking head, and he's got a thick, full head of fucking hair.
He's got that nice curly hair, too.
Yeah, too.
Yeah, that's in right now, brother.
That would irritate the shit out of me.
Oh, yeah. No, my brother, we didn't see each other for like 5 years. And when I was I was doing my apprenticeship, he came to visit me for like a week. And I wore a hat every day because I was bald. And on the 3rd day, he was like, dude, what's up with a different hat every day? Like, where's your hair at? And I was like, I'm bald. And he's like, no way. And he rips the hat off and he goes, oh, let me see. And he's rubbing it. And he just goes, man, that is such a shame. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And then the next day, randomly, we're like at a bar, and he just rips my hat off, and he goes, such a shame, such a shame. And he did it every day. I was like, stop. So when I got the transplants, I didn't tell him.
Right. And he went to do it?
Do it?
Did he went to yank it off?
No. I just showed up at his house, and they were fully grown in after my first 2. My last 3 was like my temple peaks and my widow's peak. Like they weren't necessary, but I wanted them.
Right.
So after 2, I had a full head of hair, and I went to go visit him, and he was like, you look different. You look young.
He didn't catch it?
No. He's like, did you lose weight? And I'm like, yeah, a little bit. He goes, no, that's not it. He's like, something about you. I don't know. I can't quite get it. And then it was later that day, he's a big Harley rider. So he's showing me his Harley, showing me all the stuff that he's doing. And he reaches down to grab something, and I see that he's got a little bald spot in the back. And I go, oh, man, the crown's getting thin. And he goes, yeah, it sucks. And I go, it's such a shame, isn't it? And he was like, oh, your hair. And I was like, yeah. But no one's ever been able to tell. No hairstylist has ever called it out. The only person that knew from the beginning was my barber. He's been cutting my hair since before I got transplants. So we had to kind of learn how to work with the hair because, you got the scar back here and all that stuff.
Did they do a scar for every one of them?
For the first 2, we did the strip. So I've got...
That's what I did. I have 2 strips, and I was told...
Do you have 2 scars?
Oh, yeah, I have 2 scars.
I have 1 scar.
Really?
Yeah, they removed my second strip right above where the first one was done and then created 1 scar from it. Yeah, they hooked me up.
I knew what he was doing.
Yeah, and then the following 3 were all done with the extraction method, which was incredible. Like, after having 2 strip surgeries, that extraction, you don't even feel like you had surgery the next day. You are comfortable. With that thing, you got the staples in your head. It's pulling. Your head feels this big. It's numb. It's up. But anyway, so
sorry about that.
Yeah, no. Yeah. So yeah, I had a couple long-term relationships that were great, women that I truly loved, and I just could not behave. Like
right.
Anytime one of them is a girl from Minnesota, and I've really struggled with self-forgiveness for it. We had bad communication, and we both had a lot of trauma. She had very recent trauma. Her best friend died,
right,
and she had a lot of anxiety. And I had anxiety my whole life, but I didn't know what anxiety was. I thought that was just how everyone felt, and we were all pushing through. So she would be like, "Oh, I have anxiety," and I'm like, "Get the fuck over it. We're at a party." Like, so what? Like very, very, very heartless.
Not very. Yeah, I was gonna say not very consoling.
Well, it was like,
understanding.
We've been together for a year, and you're still having this every time we go out. Like, why are you? Like, she's the problem, is what I'm saying. When I'm the problem. So I ended up moving to Florida. I accepted a job at a tattoo shop that I knew I'd make good money at. So now I'm not struggling anymore. We were in this long distance thing, and I just completely destroyed her from across the country. She never moved. And then I immediately got with who is now my ex-wife and got her pregnant. So I am just bouncing from thing to thing with no control over my emotions. I'm screaming at people. I would scream, slam the door, and walk out and beg for them to make me come back. It was...
You've been very well behaved today.
I want to get on I want to be on the internet.
Right.
I'm single, by the way. No, I'm just kidding.
What about your mom?
Okay, yeah. So, all right. So my sister...
And your sister. Too.
Yeah. All right. Well, so I met my wife. I got her pregnant in 2016. That happened. So in 2016, my sister was also getting married. So they live in Alaska. So I flew to Alaska, and Fairbanks, Alaska, not like Juneau or Anchorage, like way up there. It takes an hour to get anywhere, and it's all woods.
Is that for nursing? Like,
No.
How'd she end up there?
Well, my mom was born and raised in Alaska, and she was engaged to this guy, John. So when she was in California, she found John again, and they decided to rekindle 30-something years later, and she just moved my sister to Alaska. So that's where they were. So at this time, my sister also had no relationship with my mother or her stepdad. So I was told that she would not be at this wedding. And I'm like, great, because I don't want to see that lady ever again. But I was told that my aunts would be there, my dad's sisters. And I did not know how to feel about that, because it had never occurred to me that if my dad lied about everything else, then he lied about them too.
Right.
They were part of the clan, and I did not want any part of it. So, but it's not my wedding, and I agreed to go. So I go, and the second day, my sister's like, hey, I'm going to go pick up our aunts from the airport. Do you want to go with? And I did not want to go with. But my sister had just found out she was pregnant, and I was the first person she told. So we were having this moment of being excited about being future parents, of like breaking this generational bullshit that our dad had brought upon us. Because his mother was terrible to him, her mother was terrible to her. It was a generational thing all the way down the line. So I didn't want that moment to end. So I was like, you know what, I'll go to the airport with you. And we go to the airport, and my aunts, I see them from like down the hall, and it's like, I was so stupid. Of course these women are amazing, and my dad's the liar. Right. All it took was seeing them walk towards me, and I had felt so like lost and isolated for years. Like, nobody's like me. Nobody's had the experiences I've had. Nobody laughs like me. Nobody talks like me. Like, I'm f***ing alone. Like, and that increased my anger with the world and my frustration with myself. Well, my first time sitting down to have lunch with them, my aunt laughed, and I was like, there it is. Right. There's my laugh. These are my people. And at that diner, we told them what they had done to us since moving us out to Seattle the whole way through. I mean, they're crying, we're crying, everyone's crying. And they had no idea. They had no idea what was going on. So the next day was the wedding, and my mom just decides to come anyway and just crashes this freaking wedding. And I see her, and I don't know what to do. So I just play it cool, And after the ceremony was done, me and my aunts, we go find like a table at the far end of the reception hall. Like, hopefully she won't see us and she won't come over here.
Right, like they don't want to see her either?
No. Okay. God, no. So she sees us and she comes over. And she walks up and, oh, hi. Oh, it's so good to see you too. Oh, how long's it been? Just fake. Just so fake.
Since you abandoned me.
Well, no, she hadn't seen them since the 90s. She hasn't seen me. I saw her briefly in 2010, and you just can't listen to your mother tell you what a disappointment you are because you didn't become a doctor, and that you should do your little tattoos on the side and go back to college and become the doctor you were supposed to be. And, I was going to pay for your college if you went to medical school, but you decided to waste your time on music. That kind of shit. You can't have a relationship with somebody like that.
She's a narcissist.
Yeah, she's got to go. She takes no accountability. Everything is everyone else's fault. So she sees me. We make eye contact. And she turns to my aunt and goes, that's crazy. Kyle looks so grown up. My cousin's name is Kyle.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. I don't look like Kyle.
Right.
I've never looked like Kyle. If I didn't, my daughter is 7. If I didn't see her for the next 20 years, I would know exactly who she was when I saw her. You know your children. She knew I was sitting there. And instead of, you don't have to apologize to me for anything. Just, oh my God, I wasn't expecting to see. We're at a wedding. I'm going to be nice.
Right.
But instead, I'm going to hurt you because you hurt me by kicking me out of your life. So I'm going to pretend I don't know who you are.
Right.
And that's what she did. And everyone at the table was like, what the fuck? And my aunt's like, that's your son. How do you not know that that is your son? And my mom looks over and goes, oh, you're so big and so strong and so handsome. Oh my God, I didn't recognize you. I look exactly the fucking same as the last time she saw me. It's 6 years later. I already had all this. So It's not like you can make the argument that I got my neck tattooed and I look different. So she forces this big hug on me and then she goes, this is where you tell me how good I look. I'm like, you look great, Mom. And she goes, I understand you're engaged and you have a baby on the way. And I'm like, so you know everything about me, but you have no idea what I look like.
Right.
Okay. And she asked to come to the wedding, and I said, no, we're all full. And she goes, okay, well, I have a present for your sister in my car. I need you to help me carry it. And while we walk out to the car, she goes, how long are you in town? I said, a few more days. She goes, do you have my number? I said, I've always had it. And she goes, well, tomorrow you're going to come to my house, and I'm going to make us lunch, and you're going to sit down and tell me what I did that was so terrible that my children want nothing to do with me. And I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm just never going to sign up for that. And I grabbed the Cuisinart mixer that she got my sister, and she left. She didn't even stay. She was like, I'm out. And she left. So that was the last time I ever heard from her, saw her, spoke to her, any of that. But the following year was when my daughter was born. And that was the big shift in my life. I was scared to have a kid. I had avoided relationships with people who wanted kids because I don't know how to be a parent. I had a horrible childhood. And I realized when my daughter was born that the marriage that I was in was toxic and would result in a very similar situation for my daughter, and I had to leave. So I left her, and I don't want to get in the details of the divorce because she is my daughter's mother, and we have a better relationship than we did. But that divorce was 2.5 years long, and it was, you've been divorced. You know how it is. Both sides get angry and they start accusing the other of crazy things. I did not accuse her of anything, but some things I was accused of were really hard to deal with. And I was worried about how this was going to affect my kid. My kid wasn't even 1 yet, which I was banking on. She'll never remember it. But I need the tools to handle this freaking woman in the future so that she doesn't ever see it. So I ended up going and seeing a child psychologist. Just like, hey, I want you to spend time with my daughter and me. I've gone through this crazy thing. Maybe give me some parenting tips and some tools and blah, blah, blah. And they were like, yeah, no problem. Here's a bunch of paperwork to fill out and we'll come and get you. And I'm like, great. So I'm filling out the paperwork, but the paperwork's about me.
Right.
And it's, do you ever think about killing yourself?
Yeah.
Do you have these thoughts? Did this happen when you were a kid? And I'm thinking, well, yeah, but this is not why I'm here. So I'll just answer these questions, and they'll throw it away because this has nothing to do with why I'm even here to begin with. And then the next thing I know, this gorgeous blonde receptionist comes out. She goes, Jesse? I said, yeah. She goes, follow me. I follow her back to the room, except she's not the receptionist. She's my new therapist. And I'm just like, this ain't going to work.
Right.
So, but I'll try it out. And, okay, so why are you here? And I'm like, well, this and this and this happened in the divorce. I want a professional advocate who works with children that knows these things that I can work with. I want to make sure I'm a good father. Right. And I want to make sure that if these things keep happening, I know how to handle them both in front of my daughter and not in front of her, so I can be a healthy dad because I had a horrible dad. And she goes, yeah, no problem. Looking through your chart, though, I think you're about a day off from killing yourself. I'm really worried about this. I think you need to come see me, like, for you. We'll do the stuff with your daughter, but like this scares me. So I ended up in therapy by accident for like 2 years. And that was hugely helpful with shifting the perception of who I am. Because when you're abused and abandoned, you just think you're unlovable. You know, those are your first relationships are with your parents.
Right.
So when they show you that you're not worth anything, no one else can convince you that you are. And I felt worthless. I felt unlovable, and I think I was angry, and that's why I was lashing out so much. Because that's how I felt, and that's how everyone made me feel, even though nobody really made me feel that way. It was all my own bullshit. So I did talk therapy for 2 years, and I've been in somatic therapy for 2 years. And my somatic therapist was the one that I first told this story to. He encouraged me to tell my friends. My friends encouraged me to tell it on. They were very specific. You need to go on a podcast for this. They actually said I needed to make a podcast. I'm not going to make one just to tell one story. Right. But we all vacationed about, I guess it was like 5 or 6 weeks ago, and they were all up on me about, what are you doing with this story? Because I had an idea for a book too, that I could like bring it into the story of the book. And I was like, yeah, maybe a podcast. And they're like, well, whose would you do it? And without even thinking about it, I was like, Inside True Crime, Matthew Cox. Because it kind of fits all of it, you know? Like, a lot of the criminals that you've had have had abusive childhoods.
Right.
And the way that I did. And, you know, the scam part is insane and entertaining. And then there's like the rehabilitation.
And it was a huge part of your life.
It informed every decision that I made following. Yeah. But without the tools to understand what even happened to me.
Yeah, but the whole distortion of and manipulation of Christianity from your dad is also super. It's like almost like a. I mean, it's a subplot, but it's also like a. I mean, obviously that's also kind of an abuse and a scam in and of itself. Like the fact 100%, that he mixed them two together.
Could I plug my therapist?
Yeah.
All right. His name's Asa Dean. Super awesome guy, and his website is thebodybefriended.com.
Thebodybefriended.com.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we need to. By the way, I know a couple of investigators. We need to see if there's a way we can figure out if your dad's alive.
So literally, my uncle and I were just speaking about we would split the cost of private investigator to find out what's going on.
I can give you the name of a guy. He may just be able to go to because you understand when you die. Mm-hmm. They report it on Social Security to get a death benefit, even though it's only like $350.
Yeah.
Any funeral home, anybody, the state, anybody will automatically say, I want the $350. This guy just died. So it may just be as simple as paying this guy to call and check or do whatever. Okay. He may be able to run. So I don't know what he can do.
Well, and I've heard that private investigators have access to all kinds of databases that the law enforcement doesn't have. And
I've got two of them. I'll give you one of the guys.
That'd be great.
That I give everybody his number. He's a great guy. Former FBI. He's actually helped a bunch of people already. I'm like, people will call me or reach out to him. So he's been on the program a few times.
Excellent.
Hey, I appreciate you guys watching. Do me a favor, if you like the podcast, please share the video, click the like button, leave a comment, subscribe, hit the bell so you get notified of videos like this. And please consider joining my Patreon. It really does help me. Thank you very much. See ya.